ሰላም نجمر لنا مالتيو he's ready ቋብ ሰላም መጻኹም go ahead and introduce ገወርንሞ then ከጀመራና
እሺ ሰላም ክቡራት ተመልካቾችና ኤደን ገብረስላሴ ይባል ካብ ስትሬት ፕሬስ ለማዓንቲ በምክንያት خلای ዓመት ናይ ትግራይ ጆኖሳይድ anniversary በመግባር ዝጓዝ ተፈላለየ ዲስከሽን ሒዝና መጽና ኢና ፕሮግራም እንደገና በትግርኛን በእንግሊዝኛን ኢና ከንመሐላልፎ قدمنا مؤتمرنا كن ناي SJT مسراتن حلفنان دكتور تكا نسبلت مبرها كنا أيو دكتور تكا take it away.
Thank you Eden. Salam. إذن أنا معنتي panel discussion بSJT coordinate خوينو بأسرع شوعاتي organization مهن تبعيلن بمناسبة تجارو تزاجي القرابة عوي global panel discussion قبل حالة فخلت عمت تجراي جونوسايد لتجبر عبي تسرح التتات لجلس panel discussion يوم أتوم إسرائيل شوعاتي organizations تجانيهم إهن مهن تواعيلهم عبد الحالة فخلت عمت تجراي جونوسايد بدايسبورا تجراي اللي تسرح عبي تسرح التتات لهبرة سبنا كتردو كوميتي مسرتهم panelist مريسخون توبيكات مريسخون أبزنا يبعل مبالغ على عامت ناي تجراي جونوسايد علت كلنا بحوار كنخبره عاوي يسرح صريحكم سل المصاهم باسم SJT إتن إسرائيل شوعاتي organization بتعمل كم سجنكم يدلي TMH تجراي دياسبورا أبز الحالة فخلت عامت عم نقول عبيت سعرتات كل جزء عقد متسلفهم سلت تحاورنا بSJT بزين إسرائيل شوعاتي organization سمخوينة قبل بكم مسكنكم يدلي صريتنا أيهم عايزهم لتجراي دياسبورا كحلفول دل ملأختي لحالة خلط عمت ناي تجراي شجر لمغرف عب دياسبورا لتجبر عبي ناي دبلوماسي advocacy petition global and national protest مخاطر fundraising بعالم درجة أتنا خيرنا كنقالس كنقصل بتحتنا أطبيقة يتحساسب أبزي خذ جزء تجراي للاتو شاف لوز أي شجر عبي شجر حزب تجراي لمدحان إتال خبرتنا من شرشتا نايدقوي نايو على هيوت لا خافة ليقنا كتماتاتنا اندستراتاتنا لو هوسبيتالات يونيفرسيتات بمول ناي تجراي تكالات عيننا لا رأيه سيئنا يوم هذا هذه تجارو مع أنا شت قبلنا مع جرنا قنعنا بحدنتنا تحبينا سخن بيلنا تركعنا مس منقستنا يهزبنا إهمهن بموال كل نجار بطلقات لا رأنا لتجراي نملمع نسلف أتوم دك تجراي ناي بوليتيكا حلفتي مرحتي أبزل حلفة سلمات جزي مس منقستهم يهزبهم إهمهن لا بالهم لتجراي المدحان لتجبروا ونوركم عودي صحري نحنا دياسبورا تجراي كابل بنا مسكنكم ندلي إتجزيت موشاتيو إتعرفتوا تجراي نصاب مسوسات إتلونا دكم حزب تجراي كابزي هلكت مسوسة سلت دقوركم عودي صحري حزب تجراي هلنا أخافيتو بقنعينيا لبو لخلكم كدام زوكم إلى تسفاق كتر حزب تجراي الطالبان دخون خاجقنا حزبي أريخانا جاقانا كنخون لبامات كنخون معتبنا خين قنطس السبستنا كنفقر حدناتنا كنتنكر بدن بمعيد خالع بخانا حزبي إتا لهاب خانا ناي تجراي حادرا كين تألم اسكعتانا مجرشتا هيوتنا كنت على سينا منكس تجراي عبزا قطان معلتي مزقا إدخا نايب على حزب تجراي ترحيو بتأمر حمد الحسخا مستجقنا حزب خاتم خيرها إتانا مجرشتا إتا متكأتا لي بالله وتخب مخفل أما تشارشتان منقست إثيوبيا قنو حزغا نعم سلام عقد درد صار بزامس إخايا إخا أبزكتنا أدي قبأكا TDF عيني حزب تግራይ ناي زمانات تأمرنيا ناي عالم مرحت النقخة لحزب تግራይ وحشيت أيلخونخا حادرخا كله لتخؤلو قبر كلنا حزب تግራይ أبقوني خائنا للنا كلنا حزب تግራይ أبقوني خام للنا كرقات الخافتو ودي تግራይ تسعر ميتي غلا الله
يكتا تግራይ تسعر دكتور تكاب تعمينا نمسكن نوطات خلو تسرحو زلخا سرح قليل يكون من حزب تግራይ ون استفلاليو organizationات مسانا يوم زلو نخسرحو مالتيونا تزهاوكا يوم مغلصون قبو ايو يقنيلنا خبرتي هابلنا حزب ما خبرات ملكتنا مسانا امباسادر فسحان برهانن دبلومات يوهانسن ونلو حد مغلصي كونا ايوم تفلالي حتتات ون زمصلو بزخالو انغدي نسبلت بروجرام سلازكونت مسكم لسنا يخلو يوم كلنا نفلطو يመስلني ግን مفلات امباسادر فسحة نسخة جمرلنا دسي ولنيس شو كان فاليت كان ملأخت زلكات هاب كلنا
يغني الليدن فسحة يزبهال كالي زوسخو ነገር يبلين دارغا ሁሉም ስለተፈልጡኒ በኦዲየንስና በትግርኛን እሽተይ ከዛረውሞ እንደ አትኸቡን ወይ ሕጽረ ቢላ ኻንቶ መጋሽና بإنجليزية خزارة فقد اللي أخي زخبركمن أو SJTين أو كالوت أدفوكسي ودابتات نتنتفان أحواتنا حتى أقدمي أما أخلكم ترهيبي حصير مغلص أقرب إذا عدوا مني SJT بفلاي نبوهم بار دكتور تكان كم أول نمتحاوريت إيدنن زي العالم سكانا يكبرف أدولي دكتور تكا نايقدن ترخبنا سلازوانا النمبر نسوقن كم زفلطو أبزوان حدا خالي أخيبان كايدكو نفرق ساعات تخوى مساقاتكم سنحيخ من اللاسية في كده مسيهمو أقديمة سلازوالسي يقرتاخ تكور لي بقربيتك حتى أقديمة حتى تدل زخبركم نازي مسناي كالاي عامت وجات أرونة جونوسايد تتحيزو أو أدفوكسي زقبر صنحن نقلميتو بن زقبر كمو بن وانا وهنتا تملكيتو نتي أدفوكسي زتحبابرو مسارحتي كوليكس ريجينال كانسل زتحبابرو بسفيحو زقربو ايوم زخنو كمو بن سلطة نقرن كم تفلطوو ولا قامس SJTين كالوت أدفوكسي ودابتاتن قدم كبل نوو حيوانات نسرحون تتصنحو أبزوان زيجن بزلنا حدش السرارحة نايبزوح وجن كانسل مالتيلاترال نتحبابر كسلت سنحو أبتنا يالفوكسي سراحتي بعمقوتن بتلقتن آتي زبلو قداي أبزح زوان أكلوان أنا يخم تقدمي له زنجر كوكو دكتور تكا ترهيبكا ملأخت حلف زبلني نتجاورو وزر لهم بس أنا حكومن نقرميتو نتجاورو متكا تازي ولو وحلول سراحتي زلنا ناقوتن كبرن مغلاص أكل تراي أما أخلكم ترهيب زلو زخبركم زحلفا سئلاوي خلط عامتات فتيننا نائين قناون كنفتانينا سيطاناوي تقواراتهم زتأخاخبهم صلاتي أبانا أغز بتقراي زي فتصمو أكوين قريل قتيلو من أيوم قتلنا له عميصو من أيوم المصنا له بهيوتنا قاتلو منا نبرتنا أبريسو كوتاس حزب تقراي كنصتو زي قبرو نقر يلا نزيوني جونوسايد كبن تفصيمنا أيلنا انقصا أصلنا هذه أبزنا جونوسايد مختاي أبز حزي أبزلنا يوم مدرخ حدش مدرخنا أتزلنا يمثل ناي سلام فتاح دل هواه يرأي له مسوطة تحيزو شغالوتات فرحتات تسفاتات يتحاوسنا له وعيلة حريرهم كنصرقن قال سنا نحيل رأي خيد مبار نلحيد من نشلو منهم عينة بعيد هيكل إذا حلفوا قلت عامتات زرعنا أيو صنعات بزي تعزاز أفا نتقبروا له فتان خنتاتون كقات من الناس لزخير إذا كنت عايزي كتحساس بالناس غير نخل بدينا لنوصي نعيلا محادنت بزي تنكف بزي يقوادل unity of purpose أو حتى بزي الأول أو زي تنخون له حادنتنا نواقع عداقا نقربو بخونتات نقدفو بخونتات نقبلو زي كونس عصنعنا انتحزنا نعوتلو نتفريسنا يوخعا نبرسلو مخوان مفلات أقداسي مسلم بولكي كابز حلفة ناي صار جونوسايد كلتا عامتات قالشي زد نقون أعري استمهار كله انتهالوه نهاتكم نهادش ولدو انتاينت قلت أبيلو سلزرعاني حادا ناي روسيا يمثلني حادا الزرار والو حادا من عيد ما بعض سكا كم زخما يشمع قلا مالتي بزعوا هيوتو يمرامر يقولوا ودشة بدقاقا مزل أولم حطوتات يلوز ناتي نابز عالم زيا ممساع انتا يترقمون انتا حماغن صبقون سريحي يبل كالو تقون يلوز ولادات نيرمون كم زخما نعاتمون يحسب نعاتم كحسب عبتخالوتنا هيوتو تمكروتات كلص زيكونلو زتراترلو زنبره نجر دقم كريغن فشخ يبل ولادو ጥራይ ስለዝኾነ ይኮነ እቲ ንሱ ክኾንዎ ዝደለዮ እናኾኑ ስለዝረኣዩ እዩ ኣነ ዛ ኣዘራርባ እዚኣን ነበረ እዚኣን ኣቕሪበ እየ ዘላሳልሳ ኣተ ፐርሰናል ለብል ሰለስተ ደቂ ኣለውኒ ኣብ ዝዋን መኸተ ተዘሕፍሩኒ ነይሮም ኣብ ዘበን መኸተ ተዘሕፍሩኒ ንጹር ዓላማን ተዘይህልዎ ለይትን ቀትርን ተዘይሰርሑ እንታይ ኮን መበልኩ ፈይል የገረ ናይ ትግራይ ስነ አእምሮ የዘይሕለፍ ኩሎም ኢለ ተጸጸትኩ ይመስለን እዚ ከም ኣብነት ከሪእኩም ኢለ እምበር ንዓኻትኩም ዝገልጽ እዩ ናተይ ትውልዲ መነጸር ገይረ ንዓኻትኩም ክትርኢ ወላ እኳ በዓልትኩም ዘፍረኹም ጥንካረን ሃብትን እንታለወኩም ንእሽተይ ክንዲ ፍረጠፍ ትኸውን ቁም ነገር ደኾነ ሕሊፍና ኣሎም ኢና እዚ ኩሉ ተኣምር ዝሰርሕዎ ዘለው ኢለ ይሕጎስን ይሕበንን ብዓብዩ ካብ ሕብረተሰብ ትግራይ ካብ ትካላት ትግራይ ካብ ቤተ እምነታትን ካልኦትን ካብ ወለዶ ናብ ወለዶ ዝሓለፈ ብቲዲኤፍ ዝግለጽ ብዲያስፖራ ዝግለጽ ዘይሕለል ነገር ንትግራዋይነት መግለጺ ይኸውን እዚ እውን ተቃልስና ንድሕሪት ከም ዘይኸይድ ይረጋገጸል ኣነ ከም ተረደኒ ትግራይ ሰብ ኣለዋን ክበሃል እዚ ማለት እዩ ሰባት ምቁፃር ኣይኮነን ብዝኾነ ሰላም ንኽብለኩም ዝሓዝኩሞ መስመር ኣጽኒዕኹም ኪዱ ንኽብለኩም ብዝኾነ ቃልስና መሪር እዩ ሕልኽልኽ ይበዝሖ እዩ ሙፃእ ምውራድ የጋጥም እዩ ከጋጥምን እዩ ይኹን እምበር ቃልስና ኣንጻር ጆኖሳይድን ናይ ምንባርን ዘይምንባርን ስለ ዝኾነ መማረፅ እውን ስለ ዘይብልና ክንዕወትና ግድን ይኸውን ብዙሕ ሓቐት ተይከድና ብቅድሚ ትማለብ ሲያትል ዝተረኣየ ምናልባት እውን ኣብ ናይ ዓለም ሰላማዊ ሰልፊ ጊነስ ኦፍ ቡክስ ከኣቱ ዝኽእል ተረኣዩ ዘይፈልጥ ሓድሽ ዓይነት ምህዞ ክርኢ ከለኹ ኣብ ኣድቮኬሲ ኣብ ፓራዲፕሎማሲ ኣብ ካልኦት ስራሕትና እውን ከምዚ ዓይነት ዘሕብኑን ውፅኢት ዘለዎም ነገራት ንክንሰርሕ ናይ ትግራዋይ ኣእምሮ ድልው እዩ ዝብል ተስፋ ይበኒ ሓድነትና ዕላማ ስለ ዘለዎ ጠናኺርና ስራሕትና ንስራሕ ትግራይ ትስዕር የቕኒየለ
ኢልና ክቡር ኣምባሳደር ብጣዕሚ ኢና ንመስግን ዝበልኩሞ ሕዚ እውን ዘድሊ ንሰምዖ እንደሊ ሕዚ እዩ ወጣት ኩሉ بحايلو بزخلو مالتيو أميدا تقرأي يخون أو وطاقي يخون يقالو سيوزولونا سخاتم تزيتهلو لنا ون احنا ون كنصرحين خلال ديالنا سو بتعمي إذا مسكن عدبت أخوير كاس لازمت أخا خد كاون من متسكن يولن يردان أيو يخبر لنا أكزاوير متعرفش يودع لنا دخل صويلة
I just want to thank our partners in this struggle of survival, Brother Jeff and others. I was saying in Tigrinya that I have another meeting. I came only to express my appreciation, and I cannot express the appreciation of the people of Tigray to those of you outside the Tigray community who has dedicated your time, efforts to be on our side. If need be, we can always have another session or entertain ideas in English. I have another meeting going on. My apologies. Tigray to Southern. Thank you.
Ambassador Johannes, يا برهانن دبلومات يوحنس ون علىهم سانمو تبلون إشتن نجارن ناي diaspora وطات تبلون نجار تحليو هذي جزيريو تحطوتات سمعون الليو بستخالنا متن جزين إشتن وحيد الله كن حد خلت تملسكم من تسيبلني أمباسادور برهانك نأخذ عدد خبر كم جمرة Ambassador Hannah, can you hear me? Should Hannah wait? Technical stickehon. Diplomat Johannes. There you are. Kamil.
Salam. قاعد حنسنحكم يغني اللي إيرن دكتور تكا خلاتكم أبزلهم SJT كم تكال أغدي ما أنا ون نتهزبنا أفتح ما أزخون أوان نبزنا برلو تلمت متي لنا نبزنا بروان هزبنا مرة خير خيركب زباس حزر لو يفعون عالم كيف ولطو بخلو عازيهم نتوم تلا تبلع اللي هزبنا حماق زبهال نجار مقبار كجمرون تلو عفتهم قدميت أطويلهم بلع اللي هزبنا زبت سحزنا بر وزعة حالم نخفولتو حالم كفولتو تراين تيكونس سعنتو ون كجبر سعنتو جيرو عفتلع اللي هزبنا زبت سحزنا بر بدل أطو نخبل مقبار عب قدميت تسليفهم مريح ترى وسيدو سراحة الناس راح حزنا بر SJT سلزخانة أنا ون كمتي مصدر السهاز بولو كبرتي هابل نخبل يفوتو على أنا كلها أنا نايتقارن تخانة جن كعا تسرحي غني لنا مبال خلمدون سلزلو كبرتي هابل نخبل يدلي دحر عفتي زحلف كم تقولاتكم تذكروه عندناونا حماق كنتات هزبناونا حماق كنتات هزنا برلو مراحتناون اتمسيزنا برا نجر كبيد سلازنبره ناي قال سانفت قيرو سلازنبرو مراخبنا بزي يركبو خبابتات ناي تግራይ كوص انتلو كلاتنا بب اجامنا انتاي كنغبرينا تلمتاتو نوصينا اينا ناي ادفوكيت سراح جميرنا ينيرنا خمس تولتو خجمر انتلو تግራይ ون كمتن خلوت حاجرات بعلا زخالت هاجر سلازي كونت سروع زبحال دبلوماسي سلازي نبره ناي دبلوماسي محاور سلازي نبره اتغبر زخيل زنبره بمحبرسة بالكاد سراح ناي public advocacy سراح سلازم نبره نسونا خنقبر كلاتنا ببز خالنا ينا وفيرنا نيرنا خمتي تذكروه كأن زخونا عمل اختاتون حيزنا نيرنا تمجمرة خنبقى سكلنا SJTون كاليون اتناي مجمرة عبلع اللي هزبنا استول كوينات اتون خذلت محبرسة عالم كفلت عم قبار حدا عبي علامة حيزنا تلبسنا نيرنا خمتي تذكروه كالاي بزي حقا ومجدي ناب تግራይ بميتاو ناي حزب تግራይ صنتت زغوها هرز نبره تግራይ نختعامل زغبر زنبره حيل سلا زنبره نا إرترا حيلي اذا حيل زول نخوت حزبنا دخل خيبلع مدحانيت كيركب تعاقيتو سلا زنبره اتبلع الحزبنا زبت حزنبره صقم سبعو حاجز بمركب مدحانيت بمركب انتي يخقالل ازيو ناب قدميت كوينو مكلاس تناي ادفوكيشن زو فرلو ينيرو عبلعلي نسوحان زيغاتاتنا زبصح عبيز بحال بدل له وانجل له سنتة له هم تتذكروا سجع حزي تمزجي واستتحازه لعلي شدشت من تشح سب تجراوي زي عتق زخونة تجراوي تودينا للزحلة فخلت عامت مع التيزي أفتقد ما جنباز ودغه سبي وتصرن نسوهان سيبيلان ترايم زي أتوم زي تقصم زلهم إزي سنتة تزي بتي زجبوا أكل عدلاي زبل مصراي تغيرلو ناز وانجل زفصمو خا ناب حق نخقربو عن مغبارون عبي صاحبنا غبره صنيحي مالتي محبرسبنا فدي ادفوكاسي زلو ابلع الحزب تግራይ بصحتي اسواون كم تتذكروا يسرحوا قرش خيركب نسبو مسمغربو كيرخد تغيرو تعاطي ስለዝነበረ بمولو نازع اسوازيون كل عال تباهيلو بزح سراح يتسرحوا مستزلنا غزينا زرزرات اتون ግን እዚያቶም ተማዓት ዝባሃሉ ሒዝናዮ ሞፊርና ዝነበርና ስራሕትዮም ኣብ ኣድቮኬሲ ኤስጂቲውን ካልኦትናውን ንሰርሖም ዝነበርና ማለት እዩ ካብዚኣቶም እንታይ ተረኺቡ ዝባሃል ሕቶ ክለዓል ስለዝኽእል ካፍቶም ኣብ ዝሓለፈ 2 ዓመት ዝገበርናዮ ዓበይቲ እንቅስቃሳት እንታይ ኢና ረኺብና እንታይ ጭቡጣት ዝኾኑ ውጽኢታትና ኣርኪብና ላነታ ትግራይና ዝብል ነገር ምርኣይ ጽቡቅ ከውኒ ማለት እዩ ሓደ ካፍትናይ ኣብዚ ከባቢና ዘሎ ምጅማር ጽቡቅ ከውኒ ሕቡራት መንግስታት ልዕሊ 15 ግዜ ኣብትናይ ባይቶ ጸጥታ ትግራይ ከም ኣጀንዳ ኮይና ንኽትቀርብ ተገይሩ እዩ እዚ ዘይልሙዲ ምስቲ ናይ ትግራይ ዝነበረቶ ኩነታት ምስቲ ኢትዮጵያ ዝነበረቶ ዝሃለዋ ዓብይሽን ናይ ትግራይና ኣጀንዳ ኮይኑ أجندة قبل نتلقى هم سرعة أجندة خوين خمسة زيكروا كلاتنا نفوتنا بالمزرعة بنتفاهم قريبو عسرت حموش جزء زرر كجبارو متغير مالتي أب بايتو ودب حبرات من الاستاذ زي حدا عبي achievement لنا خنوستون خيرنا نتوم advocacy جروباتنا SJT ون كالوتون زجبرو نزي تايكم سكونه دحرد إشتي أبرخ بلي ناي بهاجرات بركتات اللي حركينا خوينا أمريكا في اللايكات فحل يوسع تفوز له عادي أبلغلي إثيوبيا بركز بولو سجومتات وسيدنا سجومتنسو بخلو نيرو ينبرن نكات علوز دبنا نقد ميتون كم يجرنا نحن فريز دبنا زبل كزارة تدري خون جن عبيت زبحرو نجارات كعدن وسيدنا تناي مجمرة التي ناي executive order بالبريزيدنت بايدن استوصل executive order after executive order نسو نيرتراون نيثيوبياون حاويسو قبل اليوم معقد كجبر زخيل متشو بايتا زتات حينيرو بسبتمبر 2021 حرم زوجين يرو سخنتي تذكروا مالتي نعو سعيبو قبل علي إثيوبيا بفلا يمسس وارز تتحازو لعلي إرتراون بتمساسالي نجر اكاباتاتو بنتجيرو إثيوبيا شيتو مسوس تتحازو ناي أقوا خنا العلم خلينا خم حبيعات من تجرنا مالتي بأمريكا استجبرت عبيت زبحالو بيلسون أركيد الله خمسة تفولتو كلتي يوم صم عبيت في اللايك انت كسين حكونا HR سانشوشن 00 حركة ناي سنة ريزولوشن 31 تنون كنت أصلا خلينا مالتي أبناي ميلينيوم كوربوريشن حاجز رخوت زنورات إثيوبياون تقطعون خذل تغييري مسؤول كم تذكروا مالتي يا توم عبيت زبحالو نوصدوا من خلينا بتمساسالي بجي 7 كلتا جيزي زخون عبيتي مجلس تاتوتينيوم عبلعلي تقراينا مالتين اليوم توم بسيناتراس بكونغرسمين ومن زوج زنورو نقرات حاوسنا بستفلالي تكالات زوج زنورو حاوسنا خم عبيت غيرنا خم نقومتهم من الفعل نقرات يوم ساعتهم مالتين اليوم نخم نقدر اتمحبر سبنا حزنا فتي SJT انتاي يكونتريبيوت غيرو لنا كم حدنا يادفوكاسي تكال زبل كنر اندحركوينا زوما achievements زياتهم of course SJT بين الشرحهم كم يكونوا نتسوري ببي بوتو بركز على سناب advocacy زناب تفلو كم تكالجن من حد عناجر ببجيزي عن التوتس زنابرت statement تكون ببجيزيون زنابرو معبالتات يكونوا ناتخاتله نابز من كتم أكلات دبدبين نازحفه بأكل نمركبو ندلا يقوم كلون بأكل نتراخبه زوم نجراس زياتهم نقدميت نخصبهم حبيس راح يسوي حمالة تكلنا زي SJT تكلنا هذه عاوز حالة في جزيز رخبنا يوم زياتهم يوم تجراينا كندت زجبا على عالم شمان خوص تغير له جنكات حزبنا خلق بوز جلزنا ولا نجر كاجن يرخبنا نزلنا تعرفوا كاس حزن قدمت كم يجرنا يعني نحن كروز جبا نازل I think مرأي عادي نجر كوني مثلا ዝተወሰነ ነጥብታት ከልዕሉ ሞ ጠጠው ከብል ግዜ እውን ሓፂር እንትብል ስለዘለኺ ኤደን ከይኸደና ማለት ከምቲ
ኣለኻ እሱ ትሕተውን መፅኡ ዝነበረ where are we and where we heading ዝኾነ እሱ ከበር ትገይርካዮ ፅቡቅ እዩ thank you
ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ እሞ ኣብቲ ኣድቮኬሲ ከምቲ ትፈልጥዎ ኣድቮኬሲ inherently ፖለቲካዊ ስርሖ ማለት ይፍቲ ኣድቮኬሲ ምናልባት ናይ ትግራይ ጥራይ ነገር ስለዝኾነ እንተይኮነስ ካሊእ እውን ኖብል ዝኾነ ሓቂ እውን ዝኾነ ነገር ሒዙ ዝቐርብ ኣካል ኩሉ ኣድቮኬሲ ስለዝተሰርሐሉ ጥራይ ፌቨረብል ዝኾነ ወይ ከዓ ኣዎንታዊ ዝኾነ መልሲ ይረክብ ማለት ይኮነ እዚ እንታይ ዘርእየና እቲ ናይ ትግራይና ዝኩሉ ሰብ ሃሊቑ ንጹር ዝኾነ ጅምላዊ ጨፍጫፍ ተፈፂሙ ጆኖሳይድ ተፈፂሙ እናሃለወ ትግራይና ንምንታይ እዮም እቶም ሃገራት ወይ ከዓ እቶም ትካላት ዓለም ለኸ ትካላት ግቡእ ዝኾነ መልሲ ዘይሃቡ ዝብል ዓብዪ ሕቶ ስለ ዝለዓል ማለት እዩ ክነልዕሎ ይግባአና ክለዓል እውን ስለ ዘለዎ ግን ከምቲ ዝበልናዮ ኣድቮኬሲ ፖለቲካ ዝተተሓሓዘ ኢልና ወሲድና ኣለና ምስ ፖለቲካ ዝተተሓሓዘ ስለ ዝኾነ ናይ ግድን ርትዓዊ ዝኾነ ሕቶ ሒዝና ስለ ዝቐረብና ጥራይ ፌቨረብል ዝኾነ ውፅኢት ክንረክብ ኢና ማለት ከዓ ኣይኮነን እንታይ ዳ እዩ ሞ ክሕግዘና ዝኽእለው ዝብል ሓደ ክልተ ሰለስተ ዝኾነ ነጥብታት ምቕማጥ ኣድላይ ይኸውን ማለት እዩ እቲ ሓደ እቲ ካራክተር እቲ ንሰርሖ ዘለና ስራሕ እቲ ኣቲናዮ ዘለና ሃዋህው ካራክተሩ እንታይ እዩ ዝመስል ዝብል ንጹር ዝኾነ መረዳእታ መሓዝ ኣድላይ ይኸውን ማለት እዩ እቲ ኣቲናዮ ዘለና ኩናት ኣብ ትግራይ ምስ ኢትዮጵያ ጥራይ ምስ ኤርትራ ጥራይ እንተይኮነስ ምስቲ ጂኦፖለቲክስ ኣብቲ ከባቢ ዘሎ ጂኦፖለቲክስ ዝተኣሳሰረ ኩናት እዩ እቲ ኩናት ንሱ ኣብ ክልቲኦም ሃገራት ተመሓሩ ጥራይ ንብሎ ወይ ከዓ ምስ ኤርትራ ምስ ግዛዕ ጥራይ እንተይኮነስ ቀይሕ ባሕሪ ብዓብዪ ሒዝና ቁላማተር ጋልፍ እውን ሚድል ኢስት እውን ናብ ሓዊስና ክንሪኦ ንኽእል ኩነታት እዩ እቲ ከባቢ ዘሎ እቲ ከባቢ ናይ ቀይሕ ባሕሪ ማለት እዩ ንሱ ስለ ዝኾነ ኣብቲ ከባቢ ንሱ ፍታሕ ንኽመፅእ ሪዞሉሽን ከቕምጡ ዝኽእሉ ኣካላት ክወስድዎም ዝኽእሉ ስጉምትታት ብዙሓት ዝኾኑ ናይ ፖለቲካ ብዙሓት ዝኾኑ ናይ ኢኮኖሚ ብዙሓት ዝኾኑ ናይ ፀጥታ ነገራት ኣብ ግምት እትዮም እዮም መፍትሒ ንሱ ከቕምጡ እዞም ካራክተርስ እዚኣቶም መሓዝ ሓደ ድላይ ይኸውን ማለት እዩ እቲ ካልኣይ እቲ ንኽተሎ ኣፕሮች እዩ እንታይ ዓይነት ኣፕሮች ኢና ክንጥቀም ዝብል ስጋሕ ሕዚ መብዛሕትኡ ንጥቀሞ ዘለና ደብዳቤ ምፅሓፍ ድሓር እንድሕር ክኢልና ኮይንና ብኣካል ምርካብ ነቶም ንረኽቦም ሰባት ደን ፕሮቴስት ምግባር እዩ እዚኣቶም ኢና ንጥቀም ዘለና ሕዚ ንክልተ ዓመት እዞም ነገራት እዚኣቶም ተጠቒምናሎም ኣለና ዝረኸብናሉ ውፅኢታት ኣሎ ዘይረኸብናዮ ውፅኢታት ከዓ ግን ኣሎ ብዓብዪ እዩ እታ ናይ ትግራይና ባህጊ ህዝቢ ትግራይ እንታይ ክኸውን ኣለዎ ዝብል ስጋሕ ሕዚ ኣይተመለሰን ዘሎ በቲ ኣድቮኬሲና እዚኣቶም ክምለሱ እንድሕር ኮይኖም እንታይ ክንገብር ኣለና ዝብል ክንርኢ ክንክእል ኣለና ንቅድሚት ማለት እዩ ንቅድሚት ካብ ንሪኦም ነገራት እቲ ሓደ እንታይ ይኸውን ማፕ ምግባር ከድልየና እዩ ቅድሚ ሕዚ ዘይተገበረ እንድሕር ኮይኑ ማፕ እንገብሮ ኢና እዩ ኦዲየንስ ናይ ትግራይ ኦዲየንስ ናይ ትግራይ ከውዝ ንኽሰምዐና ትግራይ ይበፅሓ ዘሎ ፀገማት ክተቃልሉ እሞ ናብቲ ንደልዮ ብርኪ ንክንከይድ ዘኽእለና ኦዲየንስ መን እዩ ዝብል ኮንግረስ ጥራሕ ድዩ ኣብ ሰነድ ጥራሕ ዲና ክንሕፀር ቲንክ ታንክስ እውን ዲና ክንሓውስ ኣብቶም ዓበይቲ ዝበሃሉ ናይ ኤግዜክቲቭ ትካላት ዲና ጠጠው ክንብል ዝብል ንኣታቶም ማፕ ምግባር የድልየና ማለት እዩ ንቅድሚት ማፕ ክንገብር እንተለና ናይ ኮላቦሬሽን ስራሕቲ እውን ክንሰርሕ ክንክእል ኣለና ኮላቦሬት እንገብሮ ሓደ ምስቲ ከባቢና ዘሎ ኣብ ከባቢና ዘሎ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ተመሳሳሊ ዝኾነ ፀቕጢ በደል ዝበፅሖም ዘሎ ኣካላት ኣለዉ ንሰዓቶም ስሙር ዝኾነ ስራሕ ስራሕ ከድልየና እዩ ካብቲ ከባቢና ዘሎ ውፅእ ኢልና ከዓ ግን ተመሳሳሊ ዝኾነ ኤክስፒሪየንስ ዘለዎም ኣካላት እውን ርኢና ብሰዓቶም ኮይንካ ምስራሕ ኣድላይ ክኸውን እዩ ማለት እዩ እዚ ክንገብር ከለና ተሓንቶ ዝበልናያ እቲ ካራክተር ናይቲ ኩናት ዘለናሉ ካራክተር ምፍላጥ ኣድላይ ስለዝኾነ ንሱ ንጹር ዝኾነ መረዳእታ ሒዝና ኢና ክንኣትዎ ማለት እዩ ናብኡ ናብቲ ናይ ኣድቮኬሲ ስራሕትና ድሓር እቶም ፖሊሲ ኢሹስ ምርኣይ ኣድላይ ክኾኑ እዮም ነቲ ናህና ኣድቮኬሲ ዝሕግዘና ፖሊሲ እንታይ ዓይነት ፖሊሲታት እዮም ኣብ ባይታ እንታይ ዓይነት ፖሊሲታት ኣለዉ ነቶም ንገብሮም ዘለና ዝሕግዙና ንኣታቶም ዝቃወሙ ኸ ኣንቶ ፖለቲካ ኢልና እዮም ዲናቲ ኣድቮኬሲ ፖለቲካ እንድሕር ኮይኑ ንሕና ሒዝናዮ ንቐርብ ነገር ኣሎ ኢኳሊ ብናትና አንጻር ኮይኑ ከዓ ሒዙ ዝቐርብ ኣካል ኣሎ ኢንፋክት ሞር ሪሶርስፉል ዝኾነ ሞር ሓይሊ ዘለዎ ስታብሊሽ ዝኾነ ስትራክቸር ዘለዎ ኣካል በቲ ካሊእ ገጽ ከዓ ኦብጀክት እናገበረ ዝቐርብ ስለ ዘሎ ፖሊሲታት ምጽናዕ ኣድላይ ክኸውን እዩ ማለት እዩ ዝሕግዙና እንታይ እዮም ዝቃወሙና እንታይ እዮም እንታይ ኒሽ ኣሎ እንታይ ክራክ ኣሎ ኣብቲ ማእኸል ንሕና ክንጥቀመሉ ንኽእል ዝብል ናይ ፖሊስታት ምርኣይ ኣድላይ ይኸውን እዩ ሰዓትና ከመይ እዩ ኤደን ኣለና ድዩ
5 ደቂቃ ኣለና
ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ ስለዚ let me conclude here ኣብቲ ንቅድሚት እንገብሮ እዞም ሕዚ ዝለዓልናዮም ብኣውሩ ነገራት ግምት እቲና ዝሓሸ ስራሕ ክንሰርሕ ናብ ዘኽእለና ብርኪ ክንከይድ የድልየና እዩ ዝብል እምነት ኣለኒ ዝሓለፈ 2 ዓመት ከም ህዝቢ ጥንኩር ዝኾነ ስራሕ ዝሰራሕናሉ እዩ ሕዚ እውን ቤዚክ ናይ ትግራይ ሕቶ የተመለሰን ገና ዘሎ ንሱ ሻዕ ንምልስ ሕዚ እውን ቃልስና ክንቅፅል ክንከይል ኣለና ኢድኒ ተታሒዝና ክንከይድ ኣለና ዝብል እምነት ኣለኒ ሞ ለሚስቶት ሄደን ታንክ ዩ
እሺ ዲፕሎማት ዮሐንስ ብጣዕሚ ኢና ንመስገን ብትዝሃብካልና መጽናዕትን ብሪፊንግ ዝሃብካልና እውን ማለት እየ እቲ ካልኦት ሕቶታት ዝመፀ ብዛዕባ እቲ ወረቐት ተፃሒፉ ዘሎ እዩ ግን I think I will let you decide if that's something you want to touch base on or if you have a message for diaspora for us even the youth that's working hard behind this movement that's looking for answers. I think it's fair to say just to give encouraging words and also to something to look forward to, I would say. So like I want to give you the chance to kind of respond the way you would.
Thank you very much, Eden. And by the way, I would like to recognize Jeff as well. He's with us. Honestly speaking, if Tigray is going to be recognized by the international community, if the issue of Tigray is going to be discussed in high offices, including the United Nations and countries as well, I have to say boldly, it's because of our youth diaspora. The youth at home in Tigray, they are sacrificing their ultimate life. And the youth in the diaspora, they have been our face of our diplomacy. They have been our face of our advocacy. And it is disarmingly, we have to admit that if it were not for them, for you, the youngsters, Tigray youngsters, the new generation in diaspora, honestly speaking, we couldn't have what we have today in terms of the achievement in the advocacy and diplomacy. You know what to do. You know how to do it. You know where to access, how to approach it. That's how you did it. And we're grateful, honestly speaking. We're grateful, the people of Tigray. It's been an immense morale to the people of Tigray, to the fighters, to the combatants at the forefront of the battle. It's been an immense morale. So I would like to say thank you very much. In fact, it's for you. Homeland of your forefathers, your ancestors as well. And it's my earnest hope that we'll get through of these problems that we have at hand now, and then we will have an opportunity to cherish what you have done in our land in Tigray. But I think in connection to what you've raised, Eden, I understand that our youth, our diaspora community, they are raising issues specifically in relation to what has happened in South Africa. I think one thing that we need to underline is that peace is a strategic interest for Tigray, for the people of Tigray. That is an unalienable interest to the people of Tigray. We can mention so many criteria, but that's our strategic interest. So that's one thing. I think if there's a big if we manage to duly implement what has been said in South Africa, I think it's to the best interest of Tigray in terms of reducing our sacrifice of our people, in terms of preserving what's been left in Tigray, and in terms of returning into normalcy the life of the millions of people of Tigray who's now been displaced all over in Tigray and in neighboring countries. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I think there's a big concern regarding the disarmament of TDF. We're expecting our negotiators, the government of Tigray as well, to give us a formal briefing shortly. We're expecting beginning of next week. But I think being a person closely following diplomacy and conflict resolution. It's not an easy task. It's not something that we can disarm a huge army within a week, within a month, or for that matter, a year or two. It will take years and years and years. It's not because we don't want to do that, but it's because the nature of the work on the ground demands that kind of process. So, and second thing, we have to underline that the murderers, the people who killed unarmed Tigrayans, be it from Eritrea or Ethiopia, they are still in Tigray. So long as those entities are in Tigray, and specifically it's been underlined in the document as well, it says it will be conditioned on the security developments on the ground in Tigray. So unless those issues are fulfilled, I think it will be foregone conclusion that there will not be this kind of things. So I would like to rest assured that the government of Tigray will give us a detailed briefing on the issue and stay strong and of course stay on the struggle as well. Let me start with there, Aidan. Thank you.
Well said, well stated. Thank you so much, Diplomat Johannes. Also, you have to understand that it's your efforts and our ambassadors' efforts, our parents' efforts that we're able to continue the way we're advocating. So I appreciate you taking your time coming in to give us a briefing and also to be amongst us in this busy day. For anyone that's just joining in as a panelist as well as an audience, welcome. Today we're discussing about the 2 years anniversary of Tigray genocide. And we have 4 different segments. And the first segment was in regards to how we're doing in diplomacy front. And Diplomat Johannes, as well as Ambassador Fisha, had answered a few questions and gave us a few briefings. We also have Miki Tigrai, owner of Cyber Power Tigray. I'm going to give him, sorry, we started a bit late, so I'm going to give him a few minutes to give his own briefing as well as to say hello. And we'll go to the next segment, which is going to be the youth advocacy group in diaspora. So without further ado, Miki, if you're here, please show your camera and say hello to the people.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you. And then thank you, Diplomat Johannes. We are out to get ready to shut down the Highway 395. So I apologize in advance that I am sitting in a vehicle to join you, all of you. So I'm going to speak quickly in English, and then I'm going to also say something in Tigray now. To all of the diaspora Tagaro, because of you and the support of Tigrayans around the globe, we put Tigray on the top of the international community discussion. Although it's a state within Ethiopia, our government in Tigray has been able to, along with the work of our amazing people on the ground who suffer for 2 years, food and medicine has been denied to them. Genocide is not just in the form of killing, but also in addition to the mass starvation, the fact that simple disease that are preventable has been denied, medicine has been denied on the people of Tigray. But we have opportunist individuals who may take opportunity to divide our people in this very critical moment. So I wanted to say to all the young Tagar in the diaspora that I've been working with you from day one, continue to fight. I read it very carefully. I was confused. I was nervous. I was questioning it. But the more I went back and visited and talked to my Tagaru all over, it is clear what Diplomat Johannes summed it. It will take a long time for any disarmament because the security and the safety of our people must first be answered. Eritrean forces must be out of Tigray. Amhara militia, Fano must be out of Tigray. Our people must receive food and medicine. It's a fundamental human right. We have the right to exist in the planet. Tigrayans has been ordered to be eliminated, simple as that. By the very government that we're supposed to trust in Ethiopia, brought Eritrea and the geopolitics involved as Diplomat Johannes described it. So we're going to leave that to the folks in that area. In the diplomacy advocacy area, I've been part of the SJT board member, try to contribute my best being among the young diaspora to work together with our elderly and with the young generation. Tigray has gone through so many things in the last 2 years, but the advocacy work that's been done, the protest that's been done throughout the international community, although we feel the international community has not stood to its fundamental human rights, genocide be committed in the 21st century, we will not stop until our people are free. Until the 120+ thousand Tigrayan girls and women that are victims of rape has been answered. To those who were shot in the head and tossed, that their bodies has been thrown in the mountains of Tigray. The horrors that we have seen, what's happened in Tigray, I don't need to remind any of you, because you know what's going on. We know what's going on. Tigray, as we speak, is under siege. Ethiopia, Eritrea continues to bomb civilians in Tigray. 3 days after the cessation of hostility was signed both by Tigray and Ethiopia. What we see today has not changed. So therefore, I must say, Togaru, let us unite together. This is our moment of opportunity to support peace and stability in Tigray. The Tigray people, the government of Tigray, never chose war over to settle political differences. Tigrayans has been open-minded, open-heart, welcoming peace and stability, not just in Tigray, not just in Ethiopia, but in the Horn of Africa. That includes Eritrea, that includes Sudan. Our Horn of Africa people have been suffering for too long. So shifting from my English into Tigrinya, ahate ahwate, ekade, kagodi nabdam. ብዙሕ ስቃይ ኣብ ህዝብና ንሕና ንባዕልና እውን ኣብ ዲያስፖራ ኮይና ብሓደ ነቢዕና ብሓደ በኺና ብሓደ ተቃሊስና ካልኣይ ዓመትና ኣብዚ መከራ እዚዩ ኮይና ንዝናነየሉ ሰዓት ኢልና ዝገመትናዮ ተጋሩ የለናን። እዛ ናይ ለምቅነ መፅያ ዝኒሐ ዕርቂ ክርድአና ዘለዎ እኒ ጀነራል ፃድቃን ካልኦት እውን ናይ ሕወሓት ውድብ ኮይኖም ዘይኮነ ድምፂ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ኮይኖም ናሃቶም ህይወት ይቕረየና ሃፍትና ካሊእ ነገራት ይቕረየና ኢሎም ኣብ ግንባር ኮይኖም ተሰሊፎም ምስ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ንትግራይ መስዋዕቲ ክንከፍለና ኢና ኢሎም ዝመርሑ ዝፀንሑ ሒዙ እውን ዝመርሑ ዘለዉ ኣሕዋትና ካብ 7 ሚልዮን ንላዕሊ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ኣብ ትግራይ ውሽጢ ዘሎ ካብ 17,000 ንላዕሊ ኢትዮጵያዊ እየ ኢሉ ዘገልገለ ትግራዋይ ተጋሩ ኣሕዋትና ኣሓትና ከምዚ ገይረን እዚ ኩሉ ስቃይ ንኢትዮጵያ ሰርቪስ ተባሂሉ ተዋሃበ ኣብ እስር ቤት ኢትዮጵያ ሙሉእ ይሳቀሎ። እዚ ዝብለኩም ዘለኹ ግን እቲ ሲቪሊየን ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ተኣሰረ ዝሳቀ ተቐተለ ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ወታደር ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ኮይኖም ንኢትዮጵያ እናገልገሉ ዝፀንሑ ተጋሩ ኢትዮጵያውያን ኮይኖም ካብ 17,000 ንላዕሊ ፈቆድኡ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ እስር ቤት ሒዙ እውን ይሳቀሉ እዮም ዘለዉ ይቅተሉን ኣለዉ። ነዚኣቶም መልስታት ተይተዋሃበ ንተር ትግራይ ተደፍረት ሓፍተይ ተደፍረት ኣዶይ ኣዶኹም ኣዶና መልሲ ተይተዋሃበሉ ትግራይ ከም ብሓድሽ እትቀራጊፍና ፀላኢ መፅኡ ድልየቱ ክዕንድረላ ኣይ ትግራይ ኢልና ንዛረቡ ሓደሓደ ክሰምዖ ከለኹ ይሕመኒ ንእሽቶ ግን ሓቦኛሃት ኮይና ንሕና መናእሰይ ምስ ዓበይቲ ኮይና هو ብዙሕ ጌጋታት ሰሪሕና ኣነ ንባዕለይ ሚድያ ሓደ ግዜ ስምዒተኛ ኮይነ ይዛረብ ይወቅስ እየ እዚ ግን ተጋሩ ፀሊኤ ተጋሩ ክንፈላለየ የብልናን ግዜኡ ብስሩ ንሕና ግዜ ንባታተነሉስ ኣይኮነን ንሕና እውን ቅድሚ ሕዚ ብሚድያ ጠንኪርና ናተናበብና ክንቃለስ ነርና እዚ ሓደ ሽግር ንሕና ክንፈትሖ ንኽእል ነርና ኢና ግን ኣብቲ ፀገም ግዜ ነቶም ዝመርሑ ዘለዉ ኣካላት ንወቀሳ ቀሊል እዩ ባይዘወይ ንወቅስ ቀሊል እዩ ብጣዕሚ ግን ኣብ ኣሜሪካ ኣነ ደስ ዝብለኒ ነገራት ኣሎ ሓደ ኣብ ወታደራዊ ሰሪሐ ነይረ እየ ኢሉ ወይ ድማ كدان تخوي نخترت لها أمريكا ويقولوا المجمع تأيو thank you for your service يقولوا نحاجرك هوتك عوفتك صحابك أيو صراح يغني النعي بس يقول كن لما دلنا نحن تجار حواتي زوم حواتنا عبدو أفريقيا خيرهم شعات يوم راي تحت أيلهم كرتات يوم نتيجة راي حاول تأيو ساعات يوم توصلوا ووصاني ناي شو 4 مليون هذي تجراي تراي وش زول ده كونه أنا مود زلنا تجارون يردومي بزحوا أسعار كم دل عاد قل يقول كم هي زين مع سويه هاي غير يعني مسلكم حزبنا بتقنية بحمام يساق يزولو أبصر بقى درجة أيقون نازل لنا أبصر بقى درجة أيقون نازل لنا سلازيو عدلنا حبوا نزل السلام توحيد زين لو أيون تاي يوتيوب مجرشوا بعلم أفتح جنبار مسارح حزب واقع ولا وزمناتنا أزال بس حيز حيال كوين هذا النيم ساعات زيو بشري بعدوا بخصم بس لخلخا بديا وز مثلا أي شعبية ناي بي بي وتهدر جزا ناخد هزنا يسقي ولو نبرتو نا شعبي نا يتراي وسنن بزي ودم سنخون بإذا خاطكم عين الرسل بإذا خاطكم تجار حواتك لازم وزينا بلكم
We have about 1 minute, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I'm to conclude ناتي نتبي نحنا بحاجة نسرح ودلتات نملء زقاقي حواتنا بلا زان عرب نتقررب فتحاول نخلفتر نهزنا قد مشفان بهالومي يلن بقى جيجاتات نيرو يو تماهرنا لإنا نقاقينا سبينا نقصال قد فتحاول نخلفتر تخوينا فقري أما أخل نقبر تقراينا بتاع مثلا فوتو عينا نكتب بحاجة لنا هلو عن سلامة وصل حيزي نبقى سلنا عينا وفلتي مشغول بقينا حلف زي ديسكشن مسودي حيزينا قانا خنجيب نفس فري وينا أزيانا ولكو تقراي تسأل يغني لك
Tigrai, sir. Thank you so much, Miki. We appreciate all the efforts that you're making. Torat Adamtana, I think I'm going to have to switch to English because a lot of our viewers and audiences also. We're trying to do both languages, Tigray and English, but without further ado, since we started a bit late, that's why we're extending that extra 10 minutes to the first panelists. The second panelist, Danny is co-hosting with me. He's part of our SJT team as well. So I'm going to give him the chance to introduce the next panelist, and then we're going to continue from there. Thank you, Danny.
Well, thank you, Eden Hafte. I lost my voice in the last couple of days with the protest, but let's get this energy going. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Eden Casa from the Youth Advocacy Group in Diaspora. Eden, take it away. Thank you, Eden Casa.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Eden Hafte, and thanks everybody for coming. Hello, panelists, organizers, and viewers who are joining us today on, my name is Aiden Casa. I will be the moderator for the advocacy segment of this program for today. I'm one of the founders of Legacy Tigray Advocacy Group, but also one of the program managers for Ethiopian for Tigray. I want to thank everybody for joining us in today, but also our panelists for today. We do have Samuel Gabru, Mabel Gabramedhin, and also Fanna Meles. So before we start with our segment, I just want to go ahead and give a little bit of a quick background on what advocacy is. Today marks, well, yesterday or the day before yesterday marks 2 years of Tigray genocide. To all of us, it is personal, and also it is affecting us tremendously every single day. It is important that we do understand what advocacy is and what it means. So for those of you who are just joining us and you hear that all the time, but it is sometimes, it's very simple. It is basically asking another person to help you express your views and wishes and help you stand up for your rights or for other people's rights. So according to the United Nations, and human rights are basically just defined as life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion, expression, the right to work and education. So I hope that as I read these human rights, you asked yourself and also came to the conclusion that these rights have been violated in Tigray for the past 2 years. So are you advocating properly? Is your advocacy impactful? Please do ask that yourself every single time you are advocating or you are being a voice for our people in Tigray as well. So advocacy does require, of course, research, public education, organizing, lobbying, and mobilizing. And we do have many organizations, many Tigray organizations who are available to join in, for you to join in, but also we encourage our viewers and our youth to join in within their community, wherever you may be living at, and take part in that advocacy work. So before I go ahead to the questions, I just want to go ahead and give you a quick clarity of questions. So whenever you are advocating, there are a principle of advocacy, and the first question you should always ask is clarity of purpose. Why are you advocating? What is your goal for Tigray? What do you wish to see for the people of Tigray? Keep that purpose in mind and do not deter from that. It is easier to achieve that goal if you know exactly what your goal and purpose is. Equality. Do you believe that Tigrayans have the equal right for life and liberty? Do you empowerment? Do you believe Tigrayans have the power for their basic human rights? Does they deserve to have their basic rights respected and also attained to? And last but not least is always putting people first. If you are advocating for something else besides the basic human rights, but also for the safety and security of people, then you may not be doing it right. But ask yourself again, who are you fighting for? So therefore, when advocating, it is important that you know why and the how and the what. So then you know what it is that you're doing, and you're doing it in the right way. I just want to go ahead and say thank you again for all our panelists. Please do listen to the questions and then the answers that our panelists will be discussing with you guys today, and take that into consideration. And please do join us and take part in your advocacy work. So panelists, again, thank you for joining us, giving us your Sunday afternoon. I know everybody's probably a bit exhausted from the 2-3 days protest that is going around globally. So I just want to say thank you. Even though you lose your voices, it's for a reason and also with a really good purpose. So panelists, please do introduce yourself and any organizations that you might be affiliated with. So I'm gonna start with Samuel Gabru. Sam, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. My question to you, and also a question I'm sure from many others, is could you please discuss the current bills and the Tigrayan diaspora friends and family of Tigrayans who stand with humanity should be expecting and what they should be working on? What can they do to bring justice and accountability for Tigray genocide or the crimes against humanity that's taking place? Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Eden. And hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. So the bills before Congress are HR 6600 in the House of Representatives and S3199 in the Senate. These two bills are, they're still under consideration. Obviously, developments of the last 2-3 weeks need to be taken into account with what may or may not happen with the bills. But right now in the United States, as many people know, people are, primarily focused on the elections. The midterm elections are this Tuesday, November 8th. In many states already, there's early voting or vote by mail. And so if you'd like to learn more about voting, you could just visit vote.org, and there's a lot of resources there. But because of the midterm election, the attention of everyone in the United States Congress, really, everyone politically throughout the country is on the fate of the elections, because the elections will determine the composition of the House and the Senate, and it will determine the leadership, which party governs which body in Congress. It will be determined this Tuesday. So there's a lot that needs to go into that before we can even figure out sort of what the next steps are for the bills. The Congress is in recess right now, which means that they're not meeting. Members of Congress, both representatives and senators, are not in DC. They are in their districts. They're running for re-election, or if they're secure in their re-election, then they're somewhere else supporting someone else in their re-election. So people are busy right now, but they will all return to Washington, D.C. on Monday, November 14th. That's when business will resume. That's when the session will resume. When they get back, there's a lot of things on the agenda for this month and for December, but they're not meeting for a lot of days. There's about 3 or so weeks of actual session left this calendar year. One week in November, 2 days after Thanksgiving, and then about 2 or so weeks in December. So not that much time, around 3.5 weeks. So we have an opportunity to continue advocating for these bills. The bills, as many people know by now, are not just about stopping the fighting in Tigray. There's a lot of other things in the bills that are included that align with our demands. Friends of Tigray, whether you're Tigrayan or not, whether you're in the United States or not, have been advocating for the same thing since the very beginning. It's not just stopping the fighting, but it's also accountability for atrocities. It's also the return of refugees and internally displaced people to their homelands. It's the withdrawal of Eritrean troops and Amhara forces from Tigray. It's the restoration of telecommunications and basic services, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we've been advocating for that go beyond just silencing the guns. And so, you know, yes, while any effort towards peace is good, and while there's a lot of good that came out of the agreement in South Africa and a lot more questions that have come out of it as well, the fact of the matter remains that our messaging, our demands are the same. And so what I would tell people is continue advocating for the bills. Right now, frankly, the Ethiopian government lobbyists in Washington, D.C. are going around telling people false information. They've undertaken a disinformation effort since last Wednesday, telling people in Washington, D.C., particularly in the United States Congress, that everything is fine, everything is perfect, there's nothing to worry about anymore. There's now peace in Tigray and Ethiopia, nothing to look at anymore. You can focus on something else. That is quite literally the message that they are sharing right now with decision makers in D.C. Now, the decision makers who are following what's going on know that that's a lie. But there are a lot of people in Washington who do not track Africa or Ethiopia or Tigray that closely. So if a lobbyist is giving you false information, they're more likely to believe it. And so our job is to say, well, hey, look, they signed this agreement, but still there is fighting in Tigray. And it's not accidental fighting. It's not like the Tigrayan forces and the Ethiopian forces accidentally shot at each other somewhere. It's airstrikes, which is an order from the Prime Minister's office. The second thing is, even though that there was an agreement signed, which went into effect last Thursday, there is no humanitarian aid in Tigray yet. And there hasn't been any since August 24th. So our message has to be that these bills are still important and still relevant because the facts on the ground show that there is still no peace in Tigray, there's no relief that is being given to Tigray, and there is certainly no accountability. And this is why I would urge people, do not rest on the bills. It's important to continue advocating. Right now, everybody's focused on the midterm elections, but after Tuesday, people will be more willing to tune into other issues again.
Thank you, Sam. I believe that those were really important dates and also information that for everybody to keep in mind. November 14 is a good date, but also please do not deter. The whole point is to make sure that, again, what are you advocating for? What is the end goal for your advocacy and the purpose? So as he said, there's no really peace, there's no relief. Definitely accountability is not, it's out the window. So it is really important that we are addressing the right questions and we are asking the obvious questions that are not being addressed, especially when it comes to lobbying. So thank you, Sam. If there's anything else that you would like to add, I will go ahead and give you a minute. If not, I'll go ahead and move to Mabel.
I'm okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sam. Thanks, Mabel, for joining us today. And I just want to go ahead and give you a moment to go ahead and introduce yourself as well, Mabel Hafte, for coming and also for any of the organizations that you might be affiliated with. My question to you is, you always ask the question, what did you do for Tigray every single day? And can you just give us a quick recap of what's happening in Tigray, as Samuel has already touched on some things, but why the voices of the youth does matter, and also what different avenues and what different avenues are available, but also encouraged to get our message out in that unique way that we're trying to. And then what message does Tigray Action Committee has out to the youth? So thank you, Mabel.
Thank you so much, Adenia, and everyone for allowing me to be in this space with you. I'm also calling from the caravan. So My apologies for calling from the car, but it does kind of answer your question a little bit. Every single opportunity is an opportunity to talk about Tigray and do something for Tigray, including joining the protests. It is a visible, visual way of showing that you are passionate about this. It allows you to speak to people who you may not be able to speak to on the internet. You can do so in person. And so it's a very effective way of getting some awareness spread. As everybody's already aware, not much has changed in Tigray. Our families are still under siege. Our families are still in need of aid, in need of food, in need of medical aid. And so it's not the time to slow up. It's not the time to stop. Nothing has changed for our families. So we must continue doing what we've been doing before. Hopefully start doing things that are a little bit different. Tigray Action Committee is on every single social media platform. And we would like for everybody else to join us on that. LinkedIn specifically is something that has become a very impactful space for advocacy work. A lot of the times when we think of LinkedIn, we think of it as only a social media platform for professional work, but it's not. You can talk about anything on LinkedIn, and hopefully you're talking about Tigray. If you're already on LinkedIn with your company and as your job and you're a little bit uncomfortable, that's okay, we understand. But if you can talk about it with your coworkers, with your bosses on LinkedIn, that gets into a louder space. Hausen, for instance, has been using, I call her the LinkedIn queen. She has been using LinkedIn for a very long time, and through it has gotten a lot of opportunities for Tigray. For instance, Forbes, when she was feeling very, very distraught a few weeks ago, as most of us were, about the news that was coming in, about the bombs that were being dropped on our families, she immediately went to LinkedIn and said, community, you guys have seen me talk about Tigray for so long. I need your help. I need your help. If anybody is out there that would be willing to maybe share some media sources or any opportunities where we can talk about Tigray, please reach out to me. Someone from Forbes reached out to her, and then Hausen and I were able to talk about what's happening in Tigray and to talk about Tigray Action Committee on Forbes, which was an incredible opportunity for Tigray, for us, but for Tigray really. So if you have the ability to use LinkedIn, please do. Please use Reddit. Reddit is a huge, huge app and social media platform that gets an incredible amount of views regularly. And so if you're able to use that, please do. It does not have to be Twitter. It doesn't have to be Facebook. A lot of the times when we're on those spaces, we're within our echo chamber. And so if you're able to find a place that does not only have Tagaru, then you're able to get into new ears, new faces, new eyes. So please use every single avenue that is available to you. During our protest a few days ago, on the 4th, we were marching to the White House, passing out flyers. I was passing out flyers in people's cars. Just, any way you can, whatever you can do it. Our message from Tigray Action Committee, and just my general message, is that unity is so important. Unity is all that we have. When we were doing our best on the advocacy front, when TDF was doing its best, it was because we were united. And so we need to continue to be united. It doesn't matter what your ideology is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your gender, your sexuality, nothing matters. We have to stay united. And so that's really my message. Tagaru United will never be divided. And we've been saying that all weekend. I will say it forever. But please, please stay united and stay together. It's really all we have. And so thank you again for having me. I'm going to go because I'm in the caravan. It's going to get loud. But again, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ma'avel Hafte. Thanks for doing this, and also for your continuous effort and asking all the right question. What did you do for Tigray today? Whatever that makes you happy. But really, thank you for giving us those two. LinkedIn and also Reddit is something for us to use that avenue, that availability, and see new eyes, new ears, new people. The point of Tigray, I've always been saying the same thing. When you're talking about humanity, people should be able to listen to you. We're not talking about politics. It's a human issue. Tigray issue is a human issue. It is not a politics issue. So please do communicate that. If you are not sure on how to, there are, of course, Tigray Action Committee, but also all the other orgs that have toolkits, just little information that gives you an idea on how to communicate with everyone without really sounding political or sounding like you're running for mayor. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is speak about your mom and dad, speak about your family, speak about what is left behind in Tigray and what they're missing right now. So thank you, Ma'avel Hafte, and we wish you luck. We'll see the pictures and the videos on social media. All right, thank you. All right. Our next panelist is Fana Meles, of course, a wonderful activist as well, and really great one. Thank you, Fana, for having us and for wanting to come in and give us your Sunday afternoon. Hannah Haftay, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself and also any organization that you might be affiliated with as well. My question to you is, how can Tigrayans advance their advocacy and what avenues are available? What have you used that worked for you? And then to our youth, what can they do to play their part in? So please go ahead. Thank you, Fana.
Hi, Eden, and hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here today. My name is Fana Meles, and I'm currently affiliated with TPN, Tagadu Professionals Network, HPN, Health Professionals Network for Tigray, and I am engaged in legislative advocacy, both in the DMV and in Atlanta. And so to answer your question, I sort of wanted to focus specifically on legislative advocacy today. I think this time has really highlighted the importance of being civically engaged as a community, and specifically with regards to legislative advocacy. This entails members of our community understanding their rights and obligations as constituents and as citizens in this country, in addition to the makeup of their local and federal government. I know many of us were thrown into advocacy overnight. And so there was a massive learning curve. For those who are already working in this arena, this may have been another day, but for many, this was a time where we were Googling things left and right and seeking knowledge from the experts in our community and within our networks. And this time has exposed the many gaps in our knowledge as a community when it comes to basic civic education, and the need to mobilize efforts to build this knowledge base with the youth and with the elder generation. And I do want to take a second to highlight the immense privilege that I and many diaspora Tagadu have with growing up in the US. We've received exposure to understanding the legislative process, even the most basic levels, all throughout our K through 12 and college education. And so one area that I think we can definitely grow in as a community is really fixating and mobilizing our efforts with building up this knowledge base. I think there's a very strong correlation with your knowledge and education of the legislative process and the way that you advocate. And as far as how I would encourage our youth, I would highly encourage our youth to organize and to get involved with existing organizations like TPN, Tagadu Professionals Network. One of the benefits of TPN is that it already has a grassroots structure with chapters existing and newly forming all across the US. And the benefit of TPN is that there's a focus on ensuring that our people receive professional development to better serve our communities here in the US and back in Tigray. And one of TPN's 4 pillars includes civic engagement. And so we plan as an organization on continuing to build the knowledge base of our communities to not only understand the importance of voting, but to delve deeper into civic engagement, understanding how to lobby, understanding how to organize and mobilize to engage with your local and federal government. There are many, the road of rehabilitating Tigray is a long one, and we're going to need relationships with our elected officials, both locally, on the state level, and federally. And that means that we need to start getting educated, making sure we understand the timeline and calendars for voting and elections, where we stand as a community on certain issues, knowing our candidates, right? And understanding the importance of deadlines, making sure that we're registered to vote on time, and that we see this as an important and worthy cause to dedicate our efforts. One thing that I've noticed is that there seems to be, I think, a gap. I think the younger generation has an understanding of why this is so important. And I've noticed even in community events, just locally, that when it comes to Gwailas, the turnout is really high. But when there are events regarding civic education, the turnouts are not as big. And I think it is important that we work across generations and across our communities to really stress the importance of this, of growing our knowledge base as a community. I highly encourage the youth to get organized. Many young people who are in high school have the opportunity to share about what's happening in Tigray and engage and lobby their friends and classmates around. Whether you're if you're in a college or a university, you also have that opportunity. And like Mabel mentioned earlier, I recognize that for some people, it is a bit risky to advocate in certain ways regarding the crisis in Tigray based on, where you work, but there are many ways to get out of our kind of vacuum hole and to engage with people beyond our community. And I think it's important that we organize first. And that is why I definitely encourage that people tap into these existing organizations that are doing incredible work so that you don't have to start from scratch, and so that we can mobilize just as a greater force.
Thank you, Fanna Hafte. I do believe our time is almost up as well. I just want to go ahead and point out something that Fanna did really say, is that there is even more time to learn. So we do understand that lobbying and that candidates and mayors and things like the politics, it is something that we don't really understand it if it's something that you don't really deal with it every day. But it is really, there are organizations, these advocacy groups that has already have this thing mapped out to the point that they know the timeline, they know what to do, what the next steps are. So all they need to do is join in and take part in advocating that knows what it is they're doing. So TPN, also any advocacy groups, but also I just want to point out that there is a lot of organizations like from Omna Tigray, who's doing a lot of research, public education, can be from Ethiopian for Tigray, who have been advocating for humanitarian crisis on the healthcare sector of it, or Legacy Tigray that does tweet sessions on making sure that humanitarian crisis is something that is being advocated and also mentioned. But also it is really important that we have learned, I hope we all learned something today, especially from the three wonderful people, Fanna, Sam, and also Ma'ben. But please do apply this advocacy work or advocacy tips and points that they have shared with us today into your advocacy day and time working. So November 14th, I'll go ahead and mention that again. Just please make sure that you keep that in mind, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists and organizers, for giving us our time. And thank you for the audience for being with us today. And Tigray Tsar.
Thank you so much, Eden. Yes, Tigray Tsar. Love the energy. Eden, Sam, Ma'ben, Fanna, what a depth knowledge you shared with us, and we appreciate it. So we'll move to the next segment, which is Friends of Tigray. We have Brother Jeff from Denver, Colorado. We also have Russell from Dallas, Texas. And then Captain Eritrea will most likely join us here. I think he's having some technical difficulties, but we'll go ahead and I'll pass it on to Eden to ask her first questions. Welcome, Brother Jeff and Russell.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, Danny. Brother Jeff, I think you already started with your mic, so I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and your organization as well. I know SJT and the 27 different organizations you've been working with closely. And if you don't know who Brother Jeff is, I think you should by now. He's one of the people that have been fighting alongside with us, including Russell as well. But I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and tell us what they've been working on.
Well, I'll just begin by saying hello again to Russell and Danny and Aiden and everyone. It's amazing that you all are doing this. And it's incredible to sit here, listen and learn, and to be inspired. My name is Brother Jeff, and I'm just going to introduce myself as a humanitarian. And I'm going to answer the question that Aiden Casa asked in terms of the clarity and mission in terms of why we advocate. And I'm very clear, my advocacy is attached to stop the genocide in Tigray, period, full stop. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Everything else about that might be strategic, it might be tactical, but my end result and my end goal when I wake up and I talk about these issues is about saving lives, respecting culture, and appreciating the humanity of everyone. And so the work that I've been doing is sharing this information, this human tragedy with everyone that will listen. It breaks my heart sometimes to see the Tagaru standing not alone, but mostly at the forefront, and yes, rightly so. However, everyone who believes that systemic rape is a bad thing should be on the forefront of this. Everyone who believes that food being used as a weapon should be at the forefront of this. Lack of access to medical care, attention, and just the basic ability to live, love, and enjoy life should be standing with the Tagaru. And so with that being said, I'll stop there. But that's basically what I've been doing. I've been being a friend. And in times of tragedy, that's when you learn who your friends are. Not in good times. Everyone can show up as a friend when things are going well. But when something as horrendous as a genocide is taking place, you clearly and immediately know who your friends are. I'm Brother Jeff, and I'm a friend of the Tagaru, Tigrai Tisar.
Well said, well said. Thank you so much, Tigrai Tisar. Russell, would you like to continue?
Yes, good afternoon. And I'd like to thank everybody in the Tigray community that allows me the honor to be a part of what's going on here in DC, as well as in Dallas. Excuse me, I'm one of the people who kind of lost my voice. God, I wish I was as smart as Brother Jeff. This guy right here, man. But I'm more of an emotional guy. So I'm going to come from a different perspective because I was listening and I got inspired by what some of the other people were talking about. And the first thing that hit me is developing, like you said, it's going to take a long time, not only to physically repair Tigray, but to grow the Tigray community in America, not only in numbers, but in strength. I was looking at my phone earlier, for an example, Ilhan Omar. She's from Somalia, right? But she is now a United States House representative for Minnesota. We need to start grooming the next generation, not only as lawyers and doctors, but also media personalities and politicians. We need to have them start going in and getting into the circles of power and influence, so this will never happen again. That's what happened with the Jewish community. Think about it, just 50 years later, after World War II, and their genocide, 6 million, now they're in power in everything, right? So they've laid the blueprint of what we can do in this community. But also, you look at what happened in apartheid in South Africa, right? When nobody saw it, nobody knew about it, right? But when you started getting media coverage, then we start saying, oh, that's a shame, that's bad. We need to stop that, right? So we've got media for what's going on with Tigray, and everybody in Tigray knows about it. But people who look like me, I didn't know. I didn't know until my brother Danny told me about it. So like the other young lady said before, get on Reddit, get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn, TikTok. People, if we can't get major media to bring energy and knowledge and coverage to the situation, we need to think outside the box and use free media to really get the word out. Because like Brother Jeff said, at the end of the day, we need to stop the genocide. And the only way that we're going to get our allies in America to help stop the genocide is to make it make sense, make it hurt somebody else's heart. Because unless we affect the mind and the heart of America, politicians or just public, because the politicians have to listen to the public, we must touch hearts and minds outside of the Tigray community so that we can get action. And I want to go ahead and step aside, let you guys go ahead and continue.
No, thank you so much for that, Russell. They did call it, the public did call it the forgotten genocide, and it's for a reason. Awareness is important, and we're lucky to have a person like yourself, Jeff, and now also we have Captain Ercha or Dawit joining in. We did have a fourth panelist unable to make it due to family obligations, but it is absolutely important. And Dawit, welcome, and we're just panelists are introducing themselves and also saying which organization they're from and how we have joined the fight to stop the Tigray genocide and what it means to you. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Jeff, Brother MB. I'm hip to MB because of Danny Primo. The rest of my Tigrawai, Ihwate, For some reason, I was thinking East Coast, but I'm on West Coast. I'm actually at IHOP eating with my family, but it's all good. It's an important topic. And one thing I've noticed on social media, ladies and gentlemen, is Tigray has surrendered, right? Now, this is coming from an Eritrean. So you gotta think about how I'm looking at this. They say Tigray has surrendered. So if Tigray is a state, or Khalil, and Ethiopia is a country, Eritrea is a country, how many powers have hit Tigray? China, Russia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Arab nations. We could keep going, Turkey, right? And the entire world has just sat and watched. Nothing has changed. Just watch. Expect it to Tigray or Tigray to fend for itself. So then tell me, how does a state make an entire country come to an agreement? So that's what we got to ask ourselves. How does a state make an entire country fighting 7 powers come into an agreement? Peace agreement. So who won? You got to ask yourself that. I mean, if you want to be logical, you want to be honest about the situation. So for me, I've been standing with my Tagaru brothers since day one. And if the genocide was against Amharans, I'd be standing with them, right? We're here for the oppressed. But for some reason, Tigray just happens to be unique to the world. I don't know why the world is hard pressed getting rid of Tigray. And if we understand geopolitics, we understand for the merger of Eritrea and Ethiopia, confederation and federation, right? That's all it is. It's all about money. It's all about geopolitics. Oh, while we'll add it, what we'll do is remove the Tigrayan people. Because the Tigrayan people...
Dawit, if I may ask one more question while you're answering this, what does advocacy mean to you? And in what way have you been mobilizing your community? You're on the right track. I wanted to add to that because we have follow-up questions coming up.
Yes, ma'am, I'll shorten it. So yes, advocacy to me, I represent Team Freedom. Team Freedom is the Eritrean diaspora. There's Tigrayans in there as well, and Americans, U.S. Army soldiers. We advocate for all oppressed, humanitarian, justice seekers. As far as Tigray goes, I don't think there's enough advocacy for the Tigray people. Obviously, no country loses 500,000, 1 million people, and no one speaks about it. Yet you're everywhere. You're shutting down streets and everything. So advocacy to me is representing the oppressed at all costs, because that can happen to you. Go ahead, sister.
Thank you so much for that briefing. I think you're right on time, and we appreciate you being here as well. Danny, you have the follow-up question?
Yes, great. Dave, Dawit, I lost my voice. I told everybody that, but this question is for 3 of you, and I would like Russell to start, then Captain Eritrea, then Brother Jeff. I guess my question is, why is it that the U.S. and the international community so late, 2 years late, in terms of just taking meaningful action about Tigray? You guys see it, how they respond to the Ukraine war. So it has been 2 years. Over 600,000 civilians have been killed. Over 120 women and girls have been raped. Complete siege. How can the U.S. and the international community just leave us alone and just forget Tigray and to be in this agony? So do Black Lives Matter is my question to you. Russell, please go ahead. You're muted, Russell. Please unmute yourself.
There we go. Let me start over. Wow. That is a very good question. And I wanted to jump in on the back of the last, is that Brother Tigray, or who was it? Captain Tigray? Who was the last person?
Captain Eritrea, or Dawit. His name is Dawit.
Oh, Captain Eritrea. Okay. One thing that I think he was leaving out is that 2 of the evil enemies, the UAE and Turkey, are military and financial allies of America. And so we don't want atrocities, but there's money involved. And you got the United States military industrial complex saying, don't you shut down our money. Don't you shut down Turkey. Don't you shut down the UAE, because there's money involved. That's the first thing. The second thing, like when you said about Russia, Russia's our enemy, but America has to touch Russia with gloves because Russia has almost as many nukes as we do. That's why we haven't got Brittany Griner out, the basketball player. We haven't got her out. There's money involved, but then also there's the race thing. Ukraine, they buy a lot of our weapons. Tigray is not asking to buy weapons. They're wanting food, medicine, humanitarian aid, and stop the war. They want peace. That's not fun. That's not, man, that to like war hawks, that's like a weak conversation. They want war. America wants war. That's any industrialized country knows that you make money off of war. So I think that's why the world is sitting back, because the leader of the world is sitting back. Everybody's looking at America. So since we're not doing nothing, they're like, okay, we're not going to do nothing, So at the end of the day, we as a people, we don't have to rely on the world getting our story out, because we can get it out. Like what happened yesterday, and I'll get finished up really quick. Yesterday was beautiful. The protest at the airport was beautiful and strong. Let me tell you, when the cops came, the Tigray people they started getting louder. They're like, we're not going nowhere. You can't make us leave. I was like, woo, this reminded me of the 1960s. It's like, whoa. And my guy, Mickey, calm, cool, collective, talking to this officer like this. And the officer got mad. He's like, what? Are you trying to use psychology on me? You think you're smarter than me? Why are you trying to do this to me? And Mickey's like, well, this and this and this and this. I was like, whoa, that dude. So I'm inspired in a point of crisis. I'm inspired of the ingenuity, the strength, and the tenacity of the Tigray people. And I know that you guys are not only going to be winning and ending this, but escalating and leading the world because of what the people of Tigray, the powerful Tigray people, have to offer the world. Once this war stops, and we keep building, no matter if the war is over, we keep building the advocacy, we keep building the communications, let the world know who Tigray is and what we can do to help the world. It's a wash. Okay, I pass.
Thank you so much, Russell. Well said, well stated, and thank you for sharing your experience. As always, I think that it's good to walk hand in hand and fight for justice and the good fight, and that's why we're all here. Brother Jeff, let me give you a minute to also hear.
Actually, Captain Eritrea is going to go next.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead, Darren.
Then Brother Jeff, thank you.
All right. So could you restate the question, sis?
I will.
Brother?
Really, of course. How you doing, brother? Really, do Black Lives Matter is the question. You've seen how they responded to the Ukraine war versus how we've forgotten. Over 600,000 civilians perished, 120,000 women girls raped. Why is the U.S. and the international community ignoring Tigray? do we matter?
Excellent question. Black lives do matter, but for Black lives, I mean, every life matters, right? Every life matters. But when you say Black lives matter, and that's the thing with my Eritrean people that disappoints me. They'll go to every Black Lives Matter rally, but when Tigrayan people die, they act like Tigrayan lives don't matter. And yet, you're me, I'm you. You're the nearest kin I got. You're the nearest, closest thing, speak my language, eat my food, dress like me, and I understand my lineage, right? So I think it's a travesty. I think it's a shame. I think it's unreal. The entire planet hasn't came out and said, it's not like you're not seeing images on social media of women, things coming out of their body, rape victims, maimed kids, Mona Lisa. This, like, it's ridiculous. To me, I feel like because of money, because it's $9 billion a day through that strait, it's $9 billion a day that the geopolitically the world loses if that Red Sea is shut. At what expense? Tigray. Tigray's the expense. In order for Abiy and his size to work, Tigray has to be sacrificed. I remember I did a Salam al-Selfie in Seattle and I said, TDF is indirectly fighting for the sovereignty of Eritrea. The entire world went crazy. No one really understood what I was saying. If Tigray is defeated, Eritrea becomes Ethiopia. That's what I'm saying, right? It's that simple. But geopolitically, if you think about money, Tigrayans are landlocked. Can't go left, can't go right, can't go south, can't go north, right? So they have to make everything work within their country. So if you block all access, millions of people will die. And the international community saw that. But the excuses were UN came to help, they shot at them. Someone else came and the road was closed, blah, 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 right? The world saw it, no one did anything. And let's take it even a step further. Majority of us are Christian Orthodox, right? We're all the devout Christians. We're all the evangelicals. Aksum, right? Tabot. I mean, what are we talking about here? Where's the Pope? No one's doing anything. This is a holy war. This is a holy war, except it just happened to be ethnic cleansing involved because of the Tigrayan people. They refuse to surrender. They rather die. And what? They sacrificed almost 500 to 700,000 people finally to get a ceasefire. But who's going to atone for this? Who's going to answer for all the deceased people? I don't see anyone going to ICC. I don't see Abiy Ahmed or Isaias Afwerki. Although there's the peace treaty now, I believe the international community's finally awoken, and they see. And if it's not ICC, then the same way they did Gaddafi, they need to do Isaias Afwerki. There's one common denominator in this war that doesn't end this war, and it's Isaias Afwerki. So yeah, Black Lives Matter only when it's convenient. If Black lives to matter, then Tigrayans have to matter as well, since they're Black just like you and I, right? Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Brother Jeff. Captain, I'll go to Brother Jeff next.
I would just say, don't get me started, but it sounds like you two have already, or you all have gotten me started. So if I say something that is unpopular, just, charge it to my heart. Do Black Lives Matter? And I'm going to go all the way with a factual statement that comes from the head of the World Health Organization. He said, why is there a difference between what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening in Tigray? And he says that Tigray is the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet right now. And he answered that question. So I'm going to just agree with the question. He said, we all know, and it's because they're Black. And so when you answer that question like that and you ask yourself, do Black Lives matter? You've got to say to who? Black Lives matter. Black lives do not matter to colonial powers who have decided to split Africa and its resources up between themselves. So Black lives certainly do not matter. And I'm going to just give you an example of that. If you find a dictator, they tend to live to be 1,000 years old. You find a freedom fighter, they tend to die of cancer or some unknown early death. And I'll give you an example. Meles Zenawi came to what I call an assassination, and I'm going to tell you why. Because he came up with something called this Renaissance Dam. Is the Renaissance Dam important? I would say yes, because all of my friends that go to Egypt, I notice there's never any rain there. Egypt has no water. And so where does Egypt and those colonial powers who control different parts of the continent and the Horn, where do they get their resources? Well, you've got to go inside of what they call Ethiopia right now and find the source of the Nile. But as Captain Eritrea also alluded to, the most powerful center of the world economy is right there at that Suez Canal and ends at that Bab el-Mandeb. That's where billions of dollars go through every moment. And we need to know who's going to control that. Well, who stands in the way and says that there should be independence and sovereignty amongst their own selves? Obviously, the Tigrayan leadership was saying, we're not going to allow all of those powers to control our resources. We're going to use some of these resources to take care of our people. And that's when you have those colonial powers say that's against the rules. And so with that being said, I will just tell you, I traveled along the Rift Valley, and I just noticed that Safaricom is coming to Ethiopia. I'm not sure if you know what Safaricom is, but it's opening up one of the largest markets. I've flown on Ethiopian Airlines. I'm wondering if that's going to be privatized. How much of your economy is going to be opened up to powers that will benefit not the people of Ethiopia, but become profit line items for other powers? And so do Black Lives Matter? They do, as long as they contribute to the bottom line of colonialism. However, we already see that people don't matter over profit. And so that's why we're saying stop the genocide. And we could make all of these connections about why this is taking place and why it continues to take place. And nobody's talking about how a dictatorship is coming into power while people are dying. It's because profit is continually being made and markets are being expanded.
Thank you. Eden, take it away, please.
No, I'm just, I'm speechless in a sense, because this is a very in-depth discussion, and the amount of energy and the amount of time that we're spending speaking for the oppressed is beyond this world. And this is not the first fight that we fought. I know majority of you that are on this screen, and I've known you guys for a while as well. So I just appreciate your undying efforts to stand with Tigray, to stand with the oppressed. And we have worked in different venues. So I appreciate you being here, joining us. And also we apologize in advance for taking your family day to be with us, but this is also family. But I truly appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Takaf feels the same way. We have one more segment that we're going to be discussing as well, and that is going to be in regards to the 2 years trauma that our people have went through, including the ones in diaspora here and our allies as well. You walked the walk with us. You cried when we cried. You laughed when we laughed. You danced when we danced. So I think that part is also needs to be taken care of. And I do have a sister of mine who's Helena, who works for the HPN for Tigray, Health Professional Network for Tigray, and she has guests with us. Thank you so much for coming, and please go ahead and introduce your guest and yourself. Thank you. You're muted, Helena, sorry.
Perfect, that was my question. Are you able to hear me? So thank you for answering. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much, as Mabel said, for allowing us to share this space with you. My name is Helena Tadetse. I am founder of Translate ET, which translates and catalogs online hate speech and war crimes against Tigrayans, and also the other program manager at HPN for Tigray, who's continuously procuring medications and mental health and focusing on mental health education for our Tigrayan community, both in Tigray as well as Sudan. We've come, as Eden mentioned, to the last segment of this program, mental health and wellness, and I have the honor of speaking with two people I'm very thankful belong in our community and belong to us. Besides their combined and notable accomplishments that the time slot will not allow me to start listing and finish listing, I want to say that Dr. Solomon has been tirelessly advocating for mental health within our community, both by presenting on and coordinating speakers to present in many community spaces, ensuring that we advocate for ourselves while in this fight of our lives. Mr. Gide, a mental health professional, has generously and continues to dedicate his time and professional expertise, not just to present at various panels and wellness-focused programs, but also is helping HPN for Tigray to reintegrate community members returning from volunteering at refugee camps in Sudan, where they're volunteering with our displaced community. So all very, very important things that we are doing in terms of in the mental health and wellness space. And my hope is that you stay with us for this last segment, because it is so important to talk about where we started at the beginning of this 2-year crisis, devastating crisis, where we found ourselves at the beginning or in the middle, and where we are now, and how to move forward with the very shocking news that we've received. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Dr. Solomon, you are muted, and Gide, you're muted as well, please.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's good to be here as a part of the panel as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I want to start 2 years ago. We were a community maybe not known for focusing on our mental health and wellness. And this extremely shocking and for many of us unforeseen thing happened. Gide, I'd like for you to just kind of walk us through what are natural responses and coping mechanisms for any kind of crisis, let alone an extremely distressful crisis like this one.
Yeah, Helena, thank you. Oh, absolutely, for sure. But I want to start with, first and foremost, my apologies, y'all. My camera is not wanting to cooperate. So I appreciate the patience on that. And then really, Helena, I want to center it with, I think, the understanding that we have collectively, right? Which is knowledge is power, and also this idea that when we know better, we do better. So with that being said, we understand that like after a crisis or a traumatic event, it's common, and I know this sounds scary to quite a few folks, right? But and also very normal for people to experience, one, emotional, and then two, physical aftershocks. And really what I'm talking about is stress reactions here as well. So sometimes these things occur immediately. Sometimes they occur hours, days, weeks, and for us as Tagaru, years, right? After the event. And reactions are the same thing, right? They can go weeks, months, even longer than that, depending on the severity and the crisis and the trauma itself. So for me, and I hope for all of us as well, right? This idea that it's impossible, I think, to know exactly how an individual react, but that those responses are gonna vary. And it's really important for us to understand, with that being said, that trauma affects people in many different ways. How I respond may not be how Helena responds, but there is this sense of like a foundation. So Helena, you said the natural responses. I wanna carve them up into two parts. There's the physical, and then more importantly, there's the emotional. And for me, in the work that I do with folks is, and I see it time and time again in my practice, is that the emotional becomes physical. So things like anger and sadness, right? Emotional responses physically could turn into lack of sleep, too much sleep actually, or not enough sleep, or too much eating or not enough eating, emotional numbness, isolation, right? This idea of going away and being by ourselves for a long amount of times. And we know this as Tagaru, our wellness is connected to not us as individuals, but us as a collective. So isolation is huge, whether it's social, whether it's family, disbelief and confusion. I hear this a lot, especially now. Struggling to rest. I know I said sleep, but you know, this idea of rest, whether it's sleep or physically being out and about, just struggling with that idea. And I'll pause it there, Helen.
Absolutely. And what a blessing it is to hear the variations of those, because no matter how involved we are in mental health work, no matter how much we've heard this before, I think for the most part, we think somebody, well, I'm eating, there's, I'm fine, I'm sleeping, that's fine. But also that you may just deviating from your normal way of being, eating too much, sleeping too much. You may have consumed alcohol before, but now you're in excess, right? You may have, smoked cigarettes before, but now, you're up a pack a day or not. So I'm really glad you said that. And so now I will get the perspective from our, from more of a community stance. And Dr. Salomon, you're out there so much, like I mentioned in your introduction, in so many different community spaces. What did that look like for our community, for our Tagara community? And how was it exacerbated by COVID? Because if we all remember, that was right there at the height of the lockdowns, although it got even worse.
Thank you for facilitating this, Helena, and thank you for the humbling and kind words, accompanied by Gide and others in the panel. I'm honored and humbled to be part of this. Very difficult times that we are addressing this important issue. So, unfortunately, this has not been the first time we face these things. The Tigray community, war in trauma has been part of us for generations, unfortunately. So when first we heard about the bad news of the war on November 4, and the first thing I did was call friends and kick the Saturday public meeting. We didn't have any specific information to share, but we knew from the Eritrean invasion 20 years prior, we know with this kind of platform it's going to be very, very important to come together and comfort people, for people to vent. So I knew, my friends knew the need for that kind of platform. And I think it was very important tool right away. And subsequently, over the last 2 years, it has proven to be so, as you know, by coming, gracing, and presenting your wisdom, your insights, and the tools that you can share. Helena, and many others. Within, I think, a couple of weeks, it started to take a toll on me. The war started to take a toll on me. So I started to recognize my response to that. Lack of sleep, physical weakness, acting like a zombie, not knowing where I'm driving, staying in a sofa or in a bed forever. There were times for days after days that I haven't left the spot for several days. Particularly when they went to Olatembe. That was a very traumatic time. Hanging for a phone call. Not their life. So, I said, if I'm feeling this way, my brothers, sisters, my friends may be feeling much worse. So first, I need help. Two, I need to be in a position to help my community as well. So I tried to reach out to a person who knows and connected with us but a little removed from the direct emotional connection. It's very difficult that people are not hurt by this, even though they are not Tigrayans. As a human being, they do. But because they don't have immediate family members, or they are not per se, maybe a little bit objective. So I reached out to someone who had some intimate academic and research connection to the Holocaust, the Rwandan genocide, and even including the rape terror in Ethiopia. Had some preliminary conversation that led to another, that led to another, and a bunch of us within our community, including Lena. And so we started a group with external folks who have experience in what they call non-traditional, not conventional American, conventional, but traditional, culturally available ways of addressing trauma, grieving trauma, and healing from trauma. So we had this conversation started. So they had also experience on a number of other conflicts, including Rwanda, from Kosovo and others as well. But what was a little unique about the Tigray trauma was life, was non-stop. Earthquake, tsunami, all kind of hurricane storm, non-stop fire. So it was alarm bell everywhere. So the first conversations was, okay, what do you want out of this gathering? What are you planning? What tools do you want? How would you like to help your community? That was the reason, the aim why we were gathered. But when you try to start a story, you know, if you have been stressed or if you have seen someone stressed, maybe you have gone, the panelists here attending, others may have gone through this or watched on TV or someone else or on a movie. You are sitting by a park and a stranger just passing by sees you are not doing all right. Just your body is telling them something is not right. So they are so nice, they approach, they would say, are you okay? Just that phrase, are you okay? This person doesn't know you, have no idea. They just ask you that question. And all the emotions come gushing.
Oh yeah.
All the emotions. So when this group asked us, what do you want? Are you okay? All the raw emotions come flooding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it took a while. It took quite a while. And the sad part is, as I alluded earlier, people who have pushed it back or completely forgot about it, at least on the active frontal mind, just all of a sudden flash back to 20 years, flash back to 40 years. Something that was completely buried became now like a volcano. Not only when they were adults, just even when they were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Faintly that things they remember but ignored.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thank you so much for being vulnerable and you're sharing that. And you're so absolutely right on things that we've repressed or didn't even, like you said, didn't even realize we knew. It would just come flooding. And why is it easy to speak with a stranger or to be completely raw with more so with a stranger? I've experienced that too. It's like when we are working in the trenches together. We know each other's pain. We know the news. We know the latest updates. And there's this hurt that goes on between us, amongst ourselves and within ourselves, that is unspoken. And then when someone outside of the community asks, you really, I think, for a moment, get to, even if it's just for a tiny moment, you get to pause and really survey yourself, survey your well-being. And I think that's perhaps where the danger lies, because that means, you know, if we were touching base with ourselves, kind of asking ourselves those important questions along these steps, even these momentary, you know, I need to go outside, take a walk, let me turn off the computer for a second. And as I say that, and I think by now, hopefully, anyone who's seen any of the mental health or heard any of the stuff that we talk about, it's always directed from an advocacy perspective, because I know we feel sort of even ashamed to talk about it outside of that, because we know the time is critical. We can't even fathom this term self-care, which we'll get to in a moment. But even from that aspect, to know that we will run out of steam unless we do these momentary checks with ourselves. And I think that is why we get into this volcano, as you said. And this is perfect time to ask Gide, what are ways that one can deal with trauma? If you've never heard the term mental well-being or wellness, if you've never considered, or even if you're an expert in it and now you're personally affected by a crisis like this and all of your tools go out the window, what are ways to deal with trauma as it's going, and not to defer looking into what's happening to yourself?
There's such a long answer to that, right? But I think
know, not a fair question for a short segment. I'm sorry.
Well, no, absolutely. But it is a fair question, because part of this process is knowledge, right? And for me, demystifying this idea that because we feel after what's happened to our people is something wrong. No, it's not. I just want to remind folks, reactions are a part of the stress response. It's not a sign of weakness or where we're lacking. When I think of us as Tagaru people, right? What almost always comes to mind is that familiarity is our freedom to our wellness. Music, church, and food is what I think. When we are struggling, that's where we go. A very simplistic notion, right? To think that where we go when what we're seeing is as brutal as it is, are these things. However, these are things that work for us. So I say familiarity is where we go. Whether it's Sudan or back home, these are the things that we immediately touch on, right? And guess what? These are the things that are stripped from us almost immediately. And what do? We go right back to it no matter where we are. So I wanted to remind everybody, oftentimes we don't have to do differently. We can go to familiarity and comfortability, because again, that's our freedom, that's our resiliency. I think the thing that oftentimes we as people struggle with is voicing, verbalizing what's happened to us and what's going on to us, for us, and to our people, right? Because again, that's a scary thing to put the words together and say, this is happening, right? So what I would say is, all we need to do is add, right, to the trauma, words. And again, how do we do that? We go to our music, we go to our church, we go to our food, no matter where we are. So for me, it isn't about different. It's bringing back those things. And then, you know, there's the traditional mental health model, right, which says that be available to listen. Sometimes it's enough to listen without providing solution. Spending time with each other, right? That should sound familiar to us. Again, because that's how our wellness is connected. Spending time alone, as scary as that sounds, is important. And then kind of to break down a bit more of the details, right? There's other simple things that we can do, like practicing daily mental health activities. Helena, you brought up walking, right? Going outside. These are things that are accessible to us. Taking time, and with that being said, you know, this idea of like taking some time each day. This is a long game. It's not about a beginning, middle, and end. So each day, to improve our mood, to improve our resiliency in stressful situations, right? So that's the idea for me behind practicing daily mental well-being. Accessing and using our existing supports, right? We are a people of physical, emotional connection. When we're close to each other, we not only grieve, but we actually recover. So, you know, talking to family that's accessible, connecting with friends, and really putting words to how we feel. And this last one is very tricky because it can be very scary, right? Without additional support. But this idea of looking to the past or looking to our past experiences, and trying to use the same strategies, right? Healthy strategies that helped us not only work through like the low spots, but that also maintained our wellness. And looking to the past doesn't mean that we have to dive in and lay and sleep there. It's just what worked for us to be here after 30 years of consistent trauma means that something has worked for us. Again, this idea of familiarity. And I'll pause it there.
So much goodness right there. I mean, so much. You know, when Dr. Solomon mentioned this avalanche volcano of emotions that come out, and that going back to that past, you said something pretty amazing, remembering that there's also a past where, yes, that exists for sure. And that comes to us like that because it is not only repressed, but untreated, unacknowledged trauma in the past, which we hopefully are making sure we don't repeat by doing sessions like this and doing all the things, hopefully, that you mentioned, but also remembering that there is a Tigray, there is a Tigrayan community that has nothing to do with what they're trying to do to us and what they are doing to us. You're right, we are a communal people. And in the early days, as we will all recall, due to COVID, all of our natural and cultural ways of coping, I think we're the original foodies, right? I think we might be the original foodies of the world. You know, there's love in our food, there's love in the boon. All of that was stripped away. And I think the biggest part also is, I mean, it took this to help most of us understand, even though we grieve so hard as a people with the wailing that just guts you, it's also part of the healing, which is why they stripped that away from our people. They wouldn't allow us to bury our people when they occupied those territories, because they don't want any sort of healing to come to us. They want to not only denigrate us, but they want to strip us of everything. So in fact, mental wellness for ourselves and for our community is a form of resistance. Even joy itself, we've been saying in the community now, is a form of resistance and resilience. So I think for anyone who may be hearing this, or your parents or your aunt or uncle struggle with this notion of self-care, maybe presenting it from that it is a way that we revolt, and it's part of our 2022 21st century revolution in itself. Naming it, Gidewa. I've heard you say, name the monster. And it's so important because I think what we see is, again, these videos, these heart-wrenching actions that are happening to us, but also name what it is that they're doing out loud. I will say, and I don't think my sister Eden Casa will mind, but there are like moments where she and I have just called each other and cried on the phone. Maybe that wasn't the plan, but that's the words fail you, and then we're like, okay, so we've got this to deliver and this, and I'll talk to you later, and you hang up. There's such power in being not only sharing, but also just being in a space together, whether it's virtually like we're doing right now, and we've learned to do because of COVID, or like Dr. Salma mentioned, being in those spaces where you're there to advocate or reach out to allies, and you end up having people that are not in the community be there for you, or as Gide mentioned, finding those resources that we once went to within our community. And remembering now we have new ways of doing that, namely like Zoom calls, right? So I know there's a meeting every Saturday early morning before the TAD meetings that where our people commune, and it's completely integrating us. So things of that nature. As we kind of start wrapping up this section, I wanted to ask Dr. Solomon, what does, maybe just a few reasons why our community struggles with self-care? Is it the word? Is it the action? Is it our past?
I think a number of reasons given. So the modern, for lack of a better term, modern medicine as part of medicine, structured services, mental health are not something among communities like ours well recognized and treated. So we have that constraint. But it doesn't mean we don't have a way of grieving or healing. We do. So one is the one you raised, Hazan, where you sit down and grieve the loss, celebrate the life of the departed, but through that process, you bond within family, within community, with your neighbors, because that's when social relationships are strengthened. Because whatever grievances, disagreements you had with your neighbor, when those time comes, you completely ignore and come to support, to care and grieve together. When families visit, pay their tribute, mourn, they don't only mourn about the one who is lost, their own loss as well. Things they have suppressed, that they didn't fully express their grievances during other occasions. They use those outlets. So we have a traditional way of living. Now the challenge comes, we have an educated modern generation as well, who may not use those tools right away, particularly because of war. You don't go home and you don't want to grieve because, like you said, you want to feel strong, you want to move, you want to march, you want to rally. So when we bring these issues, there is some resistance. So there is some not recognizing, but leery of, you don't want to go into the hole of being sucked into grieving. So if you recall, when we invite you or Maui to the Saturday meeting, the framing was inspiration. So it was not about mental health. So we had to be careful on how we crafted to invite you and present it, particularly the first few times. Eventually, they see the audience. So the organizers, given our limitations, modern medicine, all that, we had that concern. But once that happened, they looked at the public's reaction to those presentations. It was overwhelming. Wow, we would like this. We want this to happen as often as possible. So if I think those were the moments where the audience was really captivated. very rare moments. When the first time we heard from the government of Tigray was one of the most emotional times. When you and Maui presented with one of the most engaging. When Sister Mulu, I forgot her name, the young lady, that was one of the most engaging emotions. So tragedy, trauma really captures the community, wants to address that, wants to grieve together, wants to really support each other. So even though there is this transition between those who went to school, modern medicine, and see it as some kind of hesitancy of weakness, but I think that our community is ready beyond we think the community is ready. It is ready. Mm-hmm. And we have seen that again and again. So we shouldn't be afraid to bring this into the forefront and address it. The more we suppress it, we are under the assumption that maybe a sense of weakness or we may worsen the situation. It's not. We have seen it demonstratively again and again. Actually, the community wants that, our community members. And one thing that by addressing it in public, it helps people to recognize, to be aware, and to seek tools and resources and services to address that. So I think
you're just providing it with a spoonful of sugar. I see what you're doing there, and it has to be you're identifying your audience, as you mentioned. We know our culture, and perhaps even that word self. I think we don't do well with that. Even I'm, first generation, yes, but more of this, somewhere in between world. And even I have issue. In my soul, I have issue with that sort of phrase, self-care. So what I'm hearing you say is we continue to bring it to the masses, understanding that they're craving it and they don't shut it down, and we don't allow ourselves to maybe have these uninformed notions that they don't want it. And I'm so grateful that you are keeping the pulse, of the community.
And if I may chime in, kind of picking up on Gide pointed, the trauma, the grieving, the care and treatment is not just emotional health or mental health. Particularly mental health, as you know now, is associated with very severe health outcomes. Chronic disease, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and other serious problems. It's very important that we bring this so our community members not only go through this grieving, recovery, and healing, but also seek medical help for conditions that are attributable or associated with our state of mind, with our stress and mental health.
Absolutely. Even cancer itself is attributed by things like not enough sleep, not enough rest, obviously culmination of other things, pre-existing conditions or family genes. But of course, you don't want to trigger something if there are ways for you to take care of yourselves. And again, we're talking to, our whole community, our advocates who are there just, burning the candle at both ends, and also our families that are, everybody's advocating their own way, but also our families who are day and night glued to the YouTube. We've always kind of pushed the idea of find your lane in advocacy, so that you're all there, and that way you're able to get some rest, as well as hard as it is to say or to actually do, and easy to say. I do have one last question, but I want to touch base with Edenua and Danny. Do we have time for one more question? For Gide?
Two more questions, to be honest with you, because we have to put up resources, and then I have 2 more people to closing. But this is definitely a segment that needs to come back. Our community needs it. This is a public forum, right? So we'll have its own separate segment to bring back our guests and more, and have this discussion at another time. So this is not the last one.
I'll go ahead then. And thank you again all for allowing this segment to happen and this great panel. I'll just provide resources before I leave, and I know Eden, you have one more. All of our organizations are doing amazing work. As you heard, Tad has speakers happening on Saturdays. They try to spread it out. So if you are in those calls, be on the lookout. HPN for Tigray has the mental health and wellness section completely fleshed out with resources in Tigrinya as well as in English. There's also a section that you can request for a speaker, be it for your community, a mental health professional, as well as advocate like Dr. Salomon, like Gide, humbly like myself. But please use these resources. Of course, Cyber Power of Tigray, at the forefront, always they've always done given us that hour for wellness in time of crisis, and that's still continuing. There isn't a specific timing for that, but please be on the lookout for that. And I know TMH graciously picks up on those and airs it there as well. I think the messaging here is, and also the Saturday morning gatherings, if we don't make the information available widely because we don't want non-friendlies to attend, but please reach out to Eden Casa or myself or even Eden G, and we can help give you that login information. And I was just going to say, as you can tell, the messaging is we're all working together as one to make sure you take care of yourselves and we advocate for ourselves while we continue to fight the good fight. Tigrai tsar, Tigrai tsar, Tigrai tsar. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena Hafte. Thank you, our guest. We truly do appreciate you coming in and speaking with us. If you have the resources, please post it so that they can see it. I'll also share one more book that one of our sisters from our community wrote in regards to her journey with mental health. So that might be another additional resource, but they're definitely coming back to discuss this and to address some steps that can help alleviate your stress level and trauma. Before that, Dr. Takat, would you like to say something? I know you've been waiting for our guests, so go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Edu. You all have done really, really good job. And you can imagine how the people of Tigray would be so proud of us, so proud of you, especially the young people in the last 2 years. I could not even imagine just what you guys have done for the people of Tigray. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now, after organizations, لتفلالي organizations خمسة ترادين تقاريبا نهيزبن لبترتها لا سمعة اما ابز حماق جزي ابز بطعمي لحزن جزي دق تግራይ بحد خوينا اهن مالنا بطعمي عوي صقاي لهزب تግራይ عارف እንደገና نحنا ابز الحلفه قلت عمت منسيات او كل عالم امريكا طرح يكون يدو للهو اب كل عالم لتغورو ودلكم صح بعلكم وصيكم همزن دحلت هزبنا لي نغركم nobody knows من هم صرحونا يفلت أميدا وسينا نزارب دلنا سوات لسرحنا يجيرنا نقرب دلنا حدا كلامدو خالي بأكسيدنت it's not by in purpose again بهمز عينت اتمنى سي أبزناي هزب تقرأ حاجز لجورو دلوس عري بزنا يلو مجيرهم بدلهم بعلهم كله كوميتي مريسكم topics مريسكم panelist مريسكم اتل سرحكم وسرح بهمز عينت الهزب تقرأ يكتنقروا وتلهم هزب تقرأ عوي تسفى يسمع علينا معتي دق تግራይ ከምዚ ተሓባቢርና ዳያስፖራ ይልባል ግን ان ዲቴይል ሰርሑ ወደለኩም ስራሕ ሎሚ ለህዝብ ትግራይ ስለል ነገርኩሞ ብጣዕሚ ዓውይ ክብር ለንላአኹም በተለይ እዚኦም መንእሰይ ትግራይ ወንፈጽሞም ለይፈልጥዋ ካብ ሓሊፍ ደሞ ዘመን ትግራይ ተወሊዶም ትምሂሮም ድግሪ ሕዘም መጽኦም ኣብዛ ዓዲ መጽኦም ለትግራይ ክሕግዙ ዝወሉ ህራስ ለይብሎም እዮም ዝሓድሩ እና ብጣዕሚ ዓውይ ነገር እዩ ኣብ ልመጽደሉ ዓመት ብጣዕሚ ካብዚ ብልበለጸ መንገዲ ተደራጂና ተመኻኺርና ብዙሕ ነገር ንገብርና መልእኽቲ ለህዝቢ ትግራይ ነው ማዕንቲ ልሕለፍናዮ ግን it's huge ኣብ መንቀራቕዒ ኢሎ ለህዝብና ክህሉ ለይክህሉ ኣይፈልጥ ኣብዚያ ኮይና እኳ ትጨኒቕና ኣለና ኣብ ዓዲ ኮይኑ ናይ ጥይት ናይ ድሮን ናይ ጀት ናይ ጥይት ድምፂ ላ ትሰምዐ وديقوم جزاء الخدام لقاتلهم ما يكر لا فرسه ህዝብና ክንዲና ጭንቀ hamlelo ክትግምቱ ትኽእሉ እንታይ ኢኹም እና እቲ ልትገብርዎ ዘለኹም ለህዝብኹም ህዝብኹም ሓደ መዓልቲ ኣብ መቐለ ታንኪዩ ኢሉ ርእሱ ጠቒሱ ከኽብረኩም እዩ ክብረት ይሃበለይ ታንኪዩ ሶ ማች ኣቱም ለዚ ክትተሓዋወሩ ቃትሪ ለይቲ ዝሰርሐኹም ኣሕዋትና ዓብዪ ክብሪ ይግባኣኩም ኩልኹም ሞደሬተርስ ፓነሊስት ኣብዚኖም መዓንቲ ዝገበርኹም ስራሕቲ ሮል ማደል ብጣዕሚ ዓብዪ መርኣያ እዩ ክብረት ይሃበለይ ታንኪዩ ሶ ማች ባባይ ወዲ ኣለኹ
Dr. Taka, thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership. I also like to thank our panelists. Great job. Also like to thank TMH for having this live for us. And thank you, our audience, for tuning in and spending your afternoon, your evening, your day with us. On behalf of SJT, Security and Justice for Tigrai, I would like to thank you. And SJT is for everybody, by the way. So we invite you to come and join SJT. And I also like to thank Yamana, the entire PR team, as well as our advocacy team. Thank you for the great job that you guys all do. And then just to wrap up, I would like to have Brother Jeff to give closing remarks. And Eden, you're phenomenal. Thank you very much, everyone. Brother Jeff, please go ahead.
Yeah, just once again, it's been an honor to be with each and every one of you. And I want the Tigray community to know that these difficult times have forged a very strong identity. Just 2 years ago, there were a lot of individuals that, didn't know that they were Tigray. They were not even familiar with their own homeland and their own culture, but through this tragedy, it has forged an incredible identity that the world knows now. When you hear, who are we, Tigray, that has come from this activism, that has come from this self-determination. And so I'll just close by saying, you know what, you're not alone. Humanitarians and people of goodwill will always rise up. You have gone through this before, and many have as well. I would just say in this moment, trust your leadership as well. You've heard these panelists, you've heard all of the incredible talent and resources that as a community you possess. And even as you think about this peace agreement, et cetera, you've heard, the ambassador you've heard those saying this is strategic. This is a long game. It's not short. So don't slump your shoulders. Don't get lost in despair. Keep doing what you've been doing because you're making a difference. The world knows that genocide is not a place where that should exist anywhere. And you all are beating the drum. So trust your leadership. Know that, peace is possible. And however we come about that, that is the end goal. So thanks again for this opportunity, and Tigray Tisser.
Tigray Tisser indeed. ኦራት ተመልከትና ብጣዕሚና ንመስግን ምሳና ስለፀናሕኩም ሎምዓንቲ ኣጋውሽና እውን ኣሕዋትና እውን ብጣዕሚና ንመስግነኩም. Brother Jeff and Russell, I'm just simply giving the audience a thank you for tuning in today, for spending their day with us, and for being part of us. And David, we appreciate your efforts in our community and your community as well. Your communities are our communities, and if we don't come together and create unity, we're not going to defeat the enemy. So with that being said, I'm going to be sharing a few resources on the screen for the audience to see, including SJT's website, HPN for Tigray, as well as the book that I mentioned, one of our sisters wrote in our community. I truly, full-heartedly appreciate every effort that Tagaro and families of Tagaro and friends and allies are doing. Your fight is our fight, and know that by any means, if you don't see me fighting out there for you as I fight for my family, hold me accountable, and we're all responsible for that. So thank you for tuning in. This is not the first or the last. This is just a start, an introduction to what we need to do as diaspora youth, and thanking our leaders for opening the doors for us. And thank you so much. Have a blessed Sunday. Tigray Tisser, fight the good fight. TMH, we appreciate you. Cyber Power Tigray, we appreciate you. All the networks that you're using your power to create awareness, we appreciate you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, all the different organizations. And if you're new to this, please reach out to any of us. And TMH, if you can give me 5 minutes, I'm going to put up the 3 websites, and we're going to end the day. Thank you so much.
Great, Arwad.
Tigrai تعود. Tigrai تستعر.
Thank you.